Hello. How's it going? It's another day, another stream in fascist America. Hi, Bug. Come here. We'll see if she hops up here. She was up here earlier when I was getting some stuff ready. She can be fickle, but those are the feline ways, aren't they? One of the main characteristics, but also why we love them. Hi, Bug. Beanie. Come here. We'll see what she does. She looks like she's deciding. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. My name's Aubri Devashrayee. I think with the intro, I need to start adding something like I also do cultural commentary in a pretentious but correct way, because that's how I feel. And sometimes do dances that are a variety of styles, but primarily what I have on the YouTube channel, at least, is more sensual type of dances. I've been thinking about expanding the intro for a bit, but yesterday, as like some people in the chat were talking about, they're like, we're going from wildly different topics. So, yeah, I mean, you've been warned. Whatever this is, whatever the fuck we're doing, welcome, I guess. Today is kind of bleak in Utah, where I'm located. So I'm attempting to create a more serene environment. I have some chai in a Van Gogh mug, so that helps. I have this. Gatorade probably has problematic politics. I don't know much about it. I should look that up. I also have some incense burning in the back, which I find to be very soothing. Activates my ancestral memory. So, we're making it work. Since yesterday was a shorter stream day, I wanted to still cover some news that was happening, but today is a little bit different because I have intentionally been trying to find more positive news as well. So this is the sweet and sour news presentation coverage, whatever. I don't know. Because I think this is needed. I think we all need this. I certainly need this today. So that's what we'll mostly be going over. It's Cinco de Mayo. Feliz Cinco de Mayo. It's important to talk about its history and how it is rooted in resistance to colonization. So we will go over that, get into the news, try to shake things up so we get some horrendous news, because that's the world we're living in, and then also get some more positive things to hopefully balance it a little bit. And then there was this Mr. Beast video that people have been wanting me to watch, that Mark's predicted Mr. Beast. That looks interesting to me. So we'll watch that and then finish chapter 20 of the Scarlet Pimpernel. So we have a full agenda today. Let's get started, shall we? I like to start off with funny videos. So this is one that I saw from The Onion and Tim Heidecker, who apparently is an owner of The Onion. I don't know what his position is exactly, but he is a decision maker, I guess, of some sort for The Onion. And they are acquiring InfoWars from Alex Jones, and they have been trying to fight it in court, Alex Jones and his cronies. And the Tim Heidecker team won. So they're going to be able to actually acquire InfoWars, and this is a setup, a precursor, if you will, to what we can expect, I imagine. This is an InfoWars parody, and I have never seen InfoWars at all. I've only seen small clips of Alex Jones. What I have seen has been deplorable. It's been bombastic, inflammatory, full of blasphemies and untruths. Very concerning fascist rhetoric. So I've stayed away. I've let other people kind of do the commentary, and I just see whatever they pull from it. So I will probably not get many of these jokes, but I think it's still worth looking into because it's good to be making fun of Alex Jones. All right. Let's get this started.
Hi, everybody. It's Tim Heidecker here. I'm broadcasting now live on the internet. Thank you for joining me. We have major announcements to go through here. Lots going on.
The earpiece. The earpiece. His impression's pretty good. It sounds so painful, though.
Lot of turmoil the past couple of days. On our road to total victory, we have just won a major battle, folks. Okay, Alex and his gang of liars and scoundrels have been cast out into the street. They have lost InfoWars, Infowars.com, and their various platforms now. They have been cast out, ladies and gentlemen. And make no mistake, we will be the new InfoWars. Now, we got to go through the machinations of the court, and we've had some setbacks over the past couple of days, but that is not stopping us. It is not tempering our resolve. Over the next several days or weeks, you will see
Hello,
much
Linton.
more coming out of
Welcome.
this. So I just wanted to give you that.
Good to
As you
see
know,
you. We're watching a parody of InfoWars because Tim Heidecker and The Onion, they're acquiring it, which is amazing. They're good at satire, and it needs to be satirized. How are you doing?
in the past couple of days, this third court of appeals down there in Texas has granted Alex a temporary stay, delaying justice for the Sandy Hook families. All right. This is merely a distraction by the courts. We knew this was going to be coming. We prepared for it. We are continuing the fight. We are never been more resolved to seek restitution and justice for the Sandy Hook families. Now, in the past couple of days, my reputation as a comedian and as a podcaster and as an actor, if I look familiar to you, you might have seen me in the movie Bridesmaids and a number of other pictures and television shows, as well as my own work. My reputation has come under
Even
attack
the angles that they
by
have.
Alex Jones.
I am not familiar with InfoWars. Again, I've never seen it, but I do recognize that this background just like so dated and somehow overstimulating but underwhelming at the same time. Good, tirelessly working to get this deadline met. Good for you. I hope things are going all right.
And his cabal of liars and scoundrels and criminals. And I can tell you it's been difficult for me and my family, but my resolve has only been strengthened by this. I can weather these personal attacks. You can come at me all day long, and I will remain firm and strong because we have established a movement now. We are speaking now to the people out there consider themselves info warriors and who are on our side.
Is that what they're called? The fans of the show? Info warriors? Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I am interested in the comments, though. My larynx aches in solidarity. Comedy is officially now legal. Legalize comedy! As the incel Musk says. I mean, he has a million kids, but that doesn't mean he isn't an incel. Today, we're all info warriors. His vocal cords are going to be ground into dust after 2 recordings. Yeah, that's brutal. The Onion is a skinwalker and they took my shirt. It's the funniest response by Alex Jones that the Onion could have chosen to run with in this video. I didn't know he said that, but that is really funny. I got inspired to try this out over the weekend. It's a little fucky. I love that word. I feel like it's so descriptive. Oh, I mean, I won't take credit for that. I haven't done anything. Oh, this is so cute. I love Palestine colors. I mean, also Sudan colors. Very cool. That looks great. You're able to do the V ones. I was never really that good at them. I mean, I know practice, that helps. I love it. Very cute. Did you just have some like string or thread hanging around? Or did you go and get some, acquire some, source some, if you will? Yeah, when I would do the V ones, one side always looks great, and then the other side is extremely uneven, and I could never get like the tension right. Threw a tutorial up and got to tying knots. Wow. See, you are actually willing to try it. I need to like put in that effort. Very cool. I love that. Rob your mom's wool supply. Okay. Didn't even realize that was wool. Is it itchy? But also, that's gonna be durable. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
So established some of the really historic folks. We have created an alliance between the Lord God and Satan himself. We have communicated with through spiritual practice, through demon rituals. We have got.
What a way to get back in. Oh, I'm glad we're watching this. I needed this today. Alliance between God and Satan announced.
Gotten together, Lord Almighty and his son, to come together at the bargaining table in a neutral ground. Not heaven, not hell. But we have communicated to them that we want an alliance of hell a little bit,
but it isn't
and heaven
too
to push us through
especially
these final
for
moments
a first try doing that.
We have so much to get to.
I'm very impressed.
I am confirming now.
You're going to inspire me to try the V one again
now for about 2 weeks
and to get better at it.
It is tough skin. It is Texas skin. It's leathery.
Synthetic
and
wool.
Old Spice is the main fragrance, as
Yeah,
well
it looks
as
great.
various alcoholic beverages. All right. I do want to remind you, you can
also, especially like part of the charm of making things by hand, like you're not buying something from the store, is that it's like, oh, I made this. Like my own fingers made this. There was like a process that I had to go through. Like you had to work for it. Even it's not that much work, but like get a reward at the end. And then the imperfections are like, oh yeah, a human made this. It's not a machine. But the second one works. Okay, so it's the second one. I mean, still. Good for you. I love it.
On theonion.com. The Onion is responsible for the decisions that are being made right now, and the the course we're moving forward is guided by them, and they are an institution. We ask you to join them now so you could participate in this fight and become a info warrior, because InfoWars,
even the like bouncing in his
will
seat
be
is spot on.
coming to you courtesy of me as the creative director and The Onion. So join The Onion now. Get a subscription. You're not going to regret it. All right, we got a couple of phone calls we want to get to. Lots going on here. Do we have anybody on the line?
This is such boomer shit to have a background like this for Alex Jones, that it's like some like Microsoft 95 like screensaver.
I want to say, Tim, hello. This is the President of the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the
Sounds like
President
it's
of the
also
United
him.
States, Donald J. Trump, a man that I have recently been feuding with over some of his policy decisions, but a man that I believe is
Only
a good
because
man,
his
and
audience is
he's going to find his way
revolting.
through all this. But sir, it is a
That's the
pleasure
only
to have
reason
you
why
on
they're
here.
feuding.
Thank you. You know, we're going to have our disagreement. We're going to have our fights, but we love each other. And when we love can conquer all, as they say. And they said it so well.
This is his Trump
in
impression.
Love Story, and after the long weekend,
Trump says
everyone
love
remembers
can
that
conquer
movie
all.
with Deborah
Wow.
Winger and Legal Eagles.
And no one said
Another
that
great
before.
Deborah Winger
Robert
movie.
Redford.
Robert Redford.
It's the biggest
one of the
thing
greats.
anyone's
And
ever
you're
said.
Robert Redford of this new.
I like this impression because it's like true to the current Trump, of him like he's the wind-up doll. He's been wound up by Netanyahu and the oligarchs around the world, and he's running out of steam. This is him in his last phase.
This incredible war on information that you're going to be beginning. You're starting the fight.
Thank you, sir.
And I know that we've had a lot of disagreements in the past, but I say someone else I had a lot of disagreements with the King of England, King Charles, or Chuck, as I call him, Chucky Boy.
Yes, state visit.
He visited us, and he said, and I'll tell you, you look at Camel, his wife Camel, and she's got 2 humps, that's for sure. And I'll tell you, she won't have a 3rd hump from her husband or from me, because she's not as beautiful as Melania. And I told everybody,
Alex
when
Jones
we
and
were
RFK
talking
Jr. are at
to
the
the
top of my
people, and we
suspicion
were
list of humans
explaining
possibly piloted by
why we love each
plankton.
other, I said I won't be with you for 60
Yeah.
years.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if like the brainworm in RFK Jr. I shouldn't be talking with my mouth full. Whoops. It might be an alien. I think he might be already possessed by an alien. Possessed isn't the right word. Controlled. RFK Jr. is more substantiated, but Alex Jones has got some yeah. These people who are just like taking a shit ton of testosterone and steroids probably, and are just like constantly on drugs. I'm not completely against drugs, but you know, they're like doing their jobs while very high and are both deeply unqualified. This administration is the administration, or like this brand of fascism in the US. It's all about like the weird voices. It's like we have Trump, he has a definitely weird voice. Alex Jones, RFK Jr., the lawyer, who is it? Who is always at the Supreme Court? I should know his title. I'll pull him up after this. He is very similar in this way.
there's no way I
Correct,
can
yes.
be with Melania for 60 years
I understand.
because I'm so old
Didn't
and
Elon
people
get
keep
his
shooting
rotisserie
at me.
chicken bod from
Okay.
And it's
estrogen
only a
blockers?
matter of time
Thank you, sir.
until I was at the store
He's like,
when we
I
were
can't
at the White
turn
House
into Vivian, my
correspondent
trans
dinner.
daughter.
And that man came running, and we paid him
I
a
mean,
lot of money.
probably.
And he
I
said,
don't
I
even
can
know.
run
I don't
really
keep up with
fast.
him.
And we were supposed to get the shotgun, the shot of the shotgun.
Okay, all right,
I
sir. Well,
said,
listen, I understand
the
there's still.
It was the Met Gala yesterday. This may seem a little bit off topic, but speaking of oligarchs, fascist oligarchs of Nazi heritage, the Bezos, or whatever the fuck, how you say it, Jeff Bezos and his new wife were sponsors for it, and they donated like $10 million. It's like these oligarchs are so desperate to be cool, to have like cultural acceptance, and there's no way. They have no idea what it means to be cool. That's like how they've gotten to that place to begin with. It's like it's very uncool to be like so utterly callous and cruel. Like to have no sense of empathy, and also to be caring so much about what people think, but not acting in a way that could even like garner any sort of like genuine support from people. It's so bizarre to me. This is why we have to keep talking about money does not make people interesting. It doesn't make them talented. It gives them more resources and opportunities for things. But like, there's a reason why all of these like Nepo babies, all of these like people in the 1%, they have to continue to exploit us, is because they don't have talent. I saw they arrested Chris Smalls out there too. Oh, really? I didn't see that. Oh, I did see yesterday, I guess it maybe wasn't yesterday, the day before. There was a recent stabbing in the UK, and they're trying to spin it that it's because of Palestine action, when like that is completely unrelated to the person who is doing the stabbing. People are not reporting that he also stabbed someone who is Muslim in addition to people who are Jewish. So yeah, I don't know if you have any other details on that.
About active investigation on that, and we should let you go. Any updates on the war, sir?
Unfortunately, it's looking very similar to
I ask you, I'm begging you
shit
to pull
that's
out
happening
of
in the
this
US.
war and take the L on this, sir, if you would.
You know, I'll say what I say to my beautiful.
Take the L. Has Alex Jones ever said something like that? Wow. Yeah, and I also saw Kid Starver come out, and he was like, this is why the Palestine action has to stop. Where he's like, oh, what is his name? The leader of the Green Party? I'm spacing it right now. Where he's like, he cannot be a leader of the party. That's my bad impression, but I also don't care to be accurate with him. They've also been going... Polanski, thank you, Zach Polanski, for retweeting a post sharing concerns over all of the head kicks. Yeah. Where it's like, even if someone has committed an atrocity, has hurt people, like, supposedly, law enforcement is supposed to be protecting people, offering people, I don't know, like, due process for shit. Yeah, it just really puts on display the pig-like behavior and how they feel emboldened to be even more cruel when there are fascist leaders at the helm.
Granddaughter Kai, I'm not pulling out until the job
sir.
is done.
Thank you so much. Good to hear from the. Thank you. Let's let the president
so
go. He's
wonderful. Good.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just
we
saying
got another
that he was
person on the
attracted
line
to his
here who wants to speak with us.
granddaughter.
We have a Phil.
That's probably true.
Yeah, this is Phil. I'm
Phil?
very excited to be on the show. I'm happy to see you taking over InfoWars. This has just been kind of a great day for a lot of us, and very excited to talk to you.
All right, sir. Phil, what's on your mind then?
Well, I just been kind of perusing around some of the new merchandise, and for a long time I've been into gold and acquiring gold, and I really love this new product you guys
It's already
have.
tased, but since tasers
It doesn't have a
contract your
great
muscles.
family-friendly name, but called
Oh,
Pista Gold.
Yes.
damn.
Yeah, we're excited
and,
about
I've
Pista
been-
Gold, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just reiterate: we now have a scientific, technological.
Just like how you were talking about, or like 420 events, how they have been more aggressive. It's like they've been way more aggressive. Like it's just continuing to ramp up. And this is what happens when fascists are in charge. Because Keir Starmer is very fascist, in my opinion. I mean, and the people who are around him. He had clearly like an Epstein compatriot there. Unlock the secret wealth stream. Turn your piss into gold. Oh my god.
System by which we can take your urine and ship it to us, and we'll be able to extract the gold minerals out of your urine. As you know, our body is made up of many minerals and salt and
I think he
different
just
minerals,
wants to drink it.
including gold.
I'm not a
Gold
kink
comes from
shamer. Like if you
stars
like
and
piss
is
play,
rocks
water
and in
sports, that's
mines and everything.
fine.
But we also
But I think
consume
he just
gold
wants
on a
to
daily basis through
drink
just through breathing and
untested
through the
piss.
different rocks. If you swallow rocks or whatever it is, I don't know how you get gold in. Okay, but we can get it out now. So Phil, you're gonna send in your piss to us so we
Yeah.
can take it out.
Well, yeah, and I'm not a rich man, so I'm trying to, I'm collecting up a lot of my wife's jewelry that I'm gonna, condense down into urine. So
Yeah.
it's a safer way to keep this, because the communists are coming.
The
as
communists
you
are
know, and
here. The communists are here,
they're going
Phil.
to take our gold. Right, they're going to come
don't
take our
delude yourself.
gold.
Don't delude yourself. Don't lie to yourself.
They are here.
Communists are here.
Uh-oh.
They're running every
Emphasis
sector
on they.
of our economy, and they're running the government as well. Deep state is infiltrated into every sector, and this is the only way to get through that now is to.
Yeah, especially now that there is like literally a deep state where they have fired all of these bureaucrats, people who were nonpartisan. I mean, supposedly. There are issues with bureaucracy. Having worked there, I can attest to that. But people who had expertise in shit, like handling nuclear waste materials that they fired. So that's that's where we're at. We have all of these sycophants that are in place that have no experience, that are extremely dumb and loyal and cruel. So it's a really horrendous combination of things. I've been shouting this from the rooftops since the king's coronation, where they arrested anti-monarchy protesters. Yeah, at their meeting spot before they even left the building to head out to protest. No way! So they're like intense about surveillance as well. I mean, I know that like we all live in a surveillance state, but yeah. Why is there even a monarchy still? I know this is ironic coming from an American where we basically have a king now, so things just get out of hand. And the treatment of the vigil for Sarah Everard, a woman killed by an off-duty Met officer. I'm not familiar with that situation. I need to look that up. Thank you for telling me about that. Yeah. It's like this is what fascists do when they crack down on protests. There's no amount of criticism. It's all about optics and the cruelty of it.
Is to build up your own personal war chest with funds from the gold in your urine. All right, so we gotta let you go now.
Hide it.
We gotta let you go, Phil.
Okay.
Good luck to you.
Well, okay. Well, thank you. I
Using
guess.
lockdown
Feel
measures.
free to call in anytime.
Ew.
All right. ladies and gentlemen, we're reacting to this news in real time. We have number of people on the line now. If we have anybody else, producer, let me know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fuck
Hello?
the pigs.
Hello? Who's this?
This is a very
This is Tim
anti-cop.
Heidecker. Who's speaking?
channel.
I didn't get your name.
Call me AJ. I'm not who you may think I am. But Amazon bought the alphabet, and they're changing the alphabet.
All right.
They bought the
They're changing the alphabet. Caller AJ is definitely not Alex Jones.
alphabet, bunch of new letters. What do you have to say about that?
Well, sir, I don't know if this is some kind of
That's
prank
just his
phone
same
call.
voice.
You're trying to steal my skin.
No.
Oh,
No, I wouldn't steal your skin even if I was a.
he did say that. What was that? They're skinwalkers? That was such a good quote. The Onion is a skinwalker and they took my shirt. Okay.
Playing Fortnite, doing that dance that the little boy did with Katy Perry, who is a bisexual devil worshiper, and now they're going to Yale, and she's going to recruit some college boys and pee on them and bathe in feces, baptized in feces.
Yeah, that
Sir,
sounds more like an
I
Alex
feel
Jones
like you're making
activity.
a mockery of what we're doing here. And is this Alex Jones?
Oh, you have the video. Thank you for sharing.
No, this
We'll
is not.
watch
there's
after this.
parity laws to cover that, and a lot of the largest power brokers in the world, they already have billions of dollars. They don't want your money.
Mhm.
But
I understand that. Yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing there, Tim. And
Looks
just
like he
want
was
to say
having a
we're all-
hard
we're
time
all
not
be-
laughing
We're all
at
behind
that.
you, and we're using the observer effect. Quantum changes in matter just by using your mind.
Well, I agree with you on that, sir. And you seem like somebody I could get along with pretty easily. You're an easy guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree, Tim. And I would love to, maybe.
Yeah, he's trying not to laugh. Hello, Tan. Welcome. How are
Spend some
things
time.
with
We can
you?
go to San Francisco, go through Chinatown. They got
We're
a
watching a
great
parody of
Chinatown there. Get
Alex
some Chinese
Jones
food.
and
And
InfoWars.
go to Palo Alto. Go to
The
Palantir,
Onion is
Palo
buying
Alto.
it.
I know they and they say that it's in Florida now, but it's not. That's
No,
just a decoy.
I've been
Palantir.
saying that for years. The idea that it's in Florida is a complete distraction. That's what they do. They try to confuse you.
Yeah, well, and then you head up to Bohemian.
I feel bad laughing because it's like people who have like speech impediments and like stutter, like that is a really hard thing for people like to live within a very shaming society. But when it's Alex Jones and them like ramping it up a ton.
Grove up there, bring some of the Chinese food for the 45-foot owl they have there.
Oh, yes.
And offer it to the
Owl?
Yeah.
Ah!
All right. I'll tell you something. We're going to get together in Palm Beach. We're going to rub each other down with some body oil. How about that?
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, we could go to Palm Beach, and we could each, we could take
AJ
turns
and Tim
fucking a prime
Heidecker
rib.
to rub
All
each other
right.
down.
All right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see you.
While
Good to
they
talk to
rub
you.
one out for each other.
Okay, good to
Yeah,
talk to you,
all
Tim.
right. Now.
God bless.
Yeah.
Speaking of rubbing one out, okay. I need to have on my chat. I'm gonna do that right now. Add an entry thing that says 18 and up. Tuning into some satire, I see. Yes. I saw like right before I went live that there was an article saying that someone in the Secret Service was caught masturbating in public. And I'm like, oh, so is that why they were able to get into the White House Correspondents' Dinner? Is that like the security? They were just like off rubbing one out? Like, that is so wild and completely believable.
Now, if you're just joining us,
Just
we are going
no
through the imminent takeover of InfoWars.
sense
We've
of
already
respect,
won, folks. Alex Jones
boundaries,
has been kicked
consent.
off InfoWars. If you go to InfoWars.com right now, you'll see that's a dead site, okay? And but we are not finishing. We
Playing
are
with
not
the
done.
cats.
We are continuing our resolve. It reminds me of
Aw,
of
how are they
a
doing?
quote from General
Not the Gooner secrets. Yeah,
Grant.
exactly.
USS Grant, who's on the wrong side of history.
Like, we also found out that,
Still
like,
very
Kash
wise,
Patel,
astute
the
man, says in every
head of the
battle, there comes a
FBI,
time
that
when
it
both
was found that
sides
he had
consider themselves
an account on
beaten.
a Gooner website.
Then he who continues the attack wins. So we are not slowing down. We are continuing to make sure that Alex Jones pays what the families of the Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook families are
Nobody
owed.
might be coming back
and
home.
we will not slow
yeah,
down.
we need to
But
bring some decency
we will,
to this conversation.
you will find
Speaking
us
of cats,
at the
that's great.
onion.info
I love that.
and wherever else.
If you don't
And
mind
soon
me asking,
we'll be on
where
Infowars.com.
was your friend?
If my satanic ritual, which
If
we began
you
this
don't want
morning,
to or not able to
is
disclose,
any
that's totally fine.
indication, we are confident that we will be victorious. I have one message now, for specific message for Harrison, excuse me, Harrison Ford, one of Alex's
He's in the Navy,
toadies.
currently on one of the largest nuclear
Now,
ship carriers.
Harrison Ford, I
Wow.
understand that you've been on the air, coming at me, going at
I'm
me,
so
saying
glad that he gets
slanderous
to come
things on
home.
Twitter and on your program. And I just want to offer this because we are
Didn't
we
they
are
have to
war
source a
fighters. We
battering
are
ram to get
we
Cash?
are
Yes.
in the battle.
He's
But I am
often
also a
so
man
drunk
of
he's
peace
unreachable.
and a man
Yes,
of
exactly.
forgiveness.
Which has
And
never
let me
been a thing.
offer you this.
That's never
Alex,
had to be done.
The Alex Jones
And we've
train
had horrible
has left the
people
station,
in
folks.
power.
The Alex Jones train, if you're still on that train, well, you're on the road to nowhere, okay? This Harrison
Yeah, I
Ford
feel like
kid
he's going to
is a
be
young
one of the
kid.
next ones to be.
He's afforded the opportunity to make some mistakes in life, and he has made a big one. But I am not a man who is above forgiveness, and I want to offer this to you as a personal message to you, Harrison Ford. You come to me, you sit at my feet, you kiss my feet, kiss my hands, and rub oil on my feet, and beg for
Rub
my forgiveness,
oil on my feet.
and we'll find a home for you here. We want to work with you, kid. You got talent. We got to get rid of those stupid glasses you're wearing. You look like a
Who is this a picture of? I don't know who
serial
this
killer, I
is.
suppose. I don't know if that's what you're going for, but that's all right. We're gonna get you a makeover. We're gonna sit you down with my makeup people and get you a nice haircut and get you some new clothes.
Yes, it's
But
almost
you need to sit
like
at my
these.
feet, boy. And call
It's
me
almost
your Lord.
320 odd days.
I believe in God. I
Damn.
believe in the devil, and I have orchestrated
It's an
a
engineer.
alliance between them. But as far as you're concerned, I am the Lord.
Yeah.
You'll sit at my feet, boy.
I can't imagine that would be.
So that's my message to Harrison Ford. Take it
Massive
seriously.
mole.
Because this is your last chance to get off a train that is heading for a cliff.
Yeah, that
Once
is.
more, I did this earlier this morning,
That seems like it would be.
but I'm going to sip
extremely
from the blood
taxing.
of the Forsaken.
Really
This is real
hard.
human blood. You can find this at the Infowars store.
Human
This
blood.
is human blood curated from the Forsaken and the sinners. All right, this is pure premium blood, tested, FDA unapproved. And this is just human blood. As part of my satanic ritual, I am
It
a
even
servant
looks
to
a little
Satan.
bit thick.
Thank God I
Like
was
it
able
has
to
like
get
a
him
little
and
bit of
Lord
the
to
like
sit down
viscous
and come to their senses. And
a
get things
level
back to
of
before,
blood.
before Satan was cast into hell. So I'm part of that. I'm part of the peace movement.
Oh,
It's thick.
yeah.
It tastes like blood.
Ew.
And this is Satan giving me the powers to continue to fight. And we will continue to fight. And I cheers
What
to you.
is
If you have
that?
access to the blood of the Forsaken and of all the children. This is not blood. These are adult. This is adult blood, by the way. Ain't no question. I made sure of that because I don't want to get in trouble. But this is
Yeah,
this
because
is the blood of
when
the Forsaken.
he was in Discovery
It's
with
hot.
all of his lies
tastes
about the
good.
Sandy Hook
Just give me the
children.
power. It's like Sun Tzu said.
He
the victor
sent
in
over
battle seeks battle only after the
child sex
victory
abuse
has been
material
won. And we
to
will win. We will conquer.
the
Info
opposing
Wars
side's
forever.
lawyers.
You are the Info Warrior. Follow us. Info Wars is a movement, and you're on it now. You're on our ship. Come on board.
Oh, he needs some tea after that. He needs some throat coat. He needs a few cough drops. He needs to be on vocal rest for like a week. Damn. Yeah, I'm glad that your friend is able to come back, Tan. That's great. Hopefully that, like permanently, that he can find some other things that are not as draining. Okay, Linton. So this video is from the vigil. Sarah Everard, who was killed by a cop. And this is what happened at the vigil.
It was supposed to be a vigil for a woman whose suspected killer is a police officer. Instead, the tactics used by London police to break it up were widely seen as heavy-handed.
Yeah.
There were clashes and women were dragged away from the scene by officers. One woman was pinned to the floor. Now the Metropolitan Police faces a backlash from both politicians and the public, including these women who went to the site at London's Clapham Common
Oh my
Sunday.
God.
I feel very angry.
Yeah.
They think that they have the right to dictate how we mourn and how we react.
What it's done is it's kicked up every single thing that's ever happened to us, and as a collective we needed to come together to be able to grieve that as a process.
Yeah.
And basically the police
Just
robbed us of our human rights
for
collective grief.
Reinforcing
the disappearance of 33-year-old
the crime to begin with.
Walked home on the evening of March 3rd
on full display.
Outpouring of grief and dismay in Britain at the failure of police.
They don't like it when their crimes are exposed. Yeah, exactly.
Police
Which is why they are always the ones to escalate and be violent when it comes to protests and stuff, because they don't like looking like they are going up against people who aren't going to harm them.
Said she'd asked for a full report on what happened,
because it highlights their cruelty.
The officers' actions and said they were faced with a very difficult decision.
A very difficult decision. Okay. A cab. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I have some ACAB stickers that I made. I have all of these plans. I'm like, well, I'm working on this. But, things are a work in progress. Okay. So, let's get to the history of Cinco de Mayo. David Hayes Bautista is going to give us some background, and this is from 13 years ago, so there really is no danger of it being AI. That's where we're at now, where trying to find things that are educational and not just AI slop is really difficult.
This program is a presentation of University of California.
Oh, it is 13 years ago.
Your support makes UCTV's programming possible. Contribute online at uctv.tv/support. Check out our YouTube original channel, UCTV Prime, at YouTube.
Do we have a short stream today?
UCTV Prime.
Not today.
Subscribe
Yesterday
today
I did a
to get new
short
programs
stream.
every week.
Did I update the notification? Does it say that it's short today? Whoops, if so. No, it's going to be a full-length stream, so you can buckle in or do whatever you need to do throughout the stream. Hi, there's Peoples. Hello, Seventh Vixen. Welcome. Good to see you again.
El Cinco de Mayo, an American tradition.
How are things with you?
Hello and welcome to Subtext. I'm your host, Chris Gondak, and today I'll be speaking with David Hayes Bautista about his new book, El Cinco de Mayo, An American Tradition, which is published by the University of California Press. Professor Hayes Bautista.
Even though this was 13 years ago, it looks like this was made in the 80s. Gonna prep a simple dinner. Nice. What will you be having? I also added a recipes channel in the Discord. Just FYI, if you're interested in dropping some recipes because you eat delicious food. Just busy doing 1,000 steps. I mean, that's okay. We're all just trying to survive, make it work, right?
Google search on the term Cinco de Mayo. And
Good to see you.
To learn about all the different party ideas I could put together and how this holiday is celebrated in both the U.S. and in Mexico. But after reading your book, I'm asking myself, is this a holiday that's celebrated in Mexico?
It's not celebrated very much in Mexico, and that's kind of the interesting thing, because Cinco de Mayo is probably the best known Mexican holiday in the United States. I mean, it's celebrated all the way from Los Angeles to Boston, from Atlanta and Miami all the way to Seattle. It's celebrated in Canada. They have Cinco de Mayo in Vancouver and in Toronto. So one would think it should be celebrated all over Mexico, and in fact, it isn't outside of Puebla. And it's a local holiday in Puebla. Outside of Puebla, it simply is not celebrated. So for me, the question always was, well, why do we celebrate it so much here
Puebla
when it's not celebrated?
The English auto captions.
So let's clear up something for people in the Anglophone world, which is, I admit, is something I used to think. Cinco de Mayo is not Mexican Independence Day.
Thank you. It was
Absolutely,
good chatting
Cinco
with
de Mayo
you.
Is not Mexican Independence Day.
And thanks
in fact,
for
if you
the
ask
information.
a lot of people, why are you celebrating? Particularly for Latinos born here, quite
Yeah,
often
have a good
they'll
rest
say,
of
well, it
your
must
evening.
be Mexican Independence Day. And of course, immigrants will be very quick to correct them. No, it's not. That is September 15th and 16th. This is not Mexican Independence Day. So then, what is it? Why do we celebrate? And nobody really knows.
All right, let's go back to 1848, which is when your book begins. You know, we're recording this in lovely Westwood, California, which was more or less ranchero time, and this is farmland back then. Let's take, in 1848, how would you describe the Latino population in what was early on California
for this conversation,
Mexican,
which is nice because I feel like most interviewers do not look that interested.
Well, actually, to understand 1848, we need to go back to 1810 when Mexico declared its independence. Father Hidalgo rang the bell, yes, on September 16th, Mexican Independence Day, and less than 2 months later, he issued his first proclamation on December 6, 1810, and in this first proclamation he said, oh, by the way, once we get achieve independence, the first thing we're going to do is abolish slavery and give slave owners 10 days to free their slaves. And another thing we're going to do is get rid of this division of citizenship by racial background. As soon as we get independence, everyone here is going to be citizens of the Republic of Mexico. It doesn't matter what your racial background is. Well, California was part of Mexico, so this was the law of the land here in California.
And people are like,
that
equality?
Is, no slavery,
no.
And everyone was citizens, irrespective of the racial background. These were then the folks that went to bed on the evening of February 1st, 1848 as Mexican citizens. And they woke up the next morning as U.S. citizens, but they spoke the same language, they had the same food, they had the same families. The only thing that was different is now they were U.S. citizens, although they had come from a background in which no slavery, no racial distinctions on citizenship, and they woke up into a very different world.
And if we think about that, we're talking really quite a long time where civilization here in Southern California, it was primarily an agricultural area, so things didn't really change that much. And you think 1848, now you're part of the United States, and the very next year the gold strike happens in California, up in Northern California.
I don't like that he said civilization. That word is used a lot of the time by colonizers to imply or overtly state that other cultures or way of life is not civilized, that it hasn't been dominated by Western powers, Eurocentric powers.
How that affected Latino population here in California? I would imagine that it would have been a bit of a jar to all of a sudden not only become part of a new country, but now this humongous economic opportunity happens in the north of the state.
Well, actually, we need to clarify a little bit that Latinos here were not isolated, lonely outposts because of the long coastline, particularly with independence. You'd had trade with Central and South America going on for decades with the Hawaiian
He's doing a lot
Islands.
of great education.
I mean, there were three Latino vaqueros that took the whole cattle trade to Hawaii. That's why in Hawaii the cowboys are called pañolos, the way the Kanakas pronounce Espanol. They were Californians that went over in 1830.
I didn't
so
know
actually
that.
Californians are very, very well knit into the regional and the world economy, trading with the Russians, trading with Hawaii, et cetera, et cetera. So they were not isolated. They knew that things were happening. Nonetheless, things were accelerated, as they were everywhere, literally within weeks of the imposition of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, gold is discovered at Coloma. Sam Brannan makes the announcement, and the world rushed in, as a book, I believe, published earlier by UC Press says. However, remember, gold was discovered in 1848. Word of this spread, first of all, down the Pacific coast as the ships took the news of this discovery around the Horn.
UCLA.
And so during 1848, you had miners from Mexico who now were immigrants. Whereas just if this had happened a couple of weeks earlier, they would have been just moving from one part of Mexico. Now they're immigrants. You had miners from Central America and South America all coming up. In fact, they were called 48ers. And even better,
this
they
just
brought
highlights
the
the fact that borders are
they had been digging for gold and silver in Latin America for 300 years. The College of Mines had been established in Mexico City in the 1780s. They knew how to do it.
To impose domination
and they staked
on
everything
people.
out, and they were very happily digging up gold out of the ground. And then along comes 1849, and of course, then the 49ers arrived. So you had a little push and shove over who owns the gold fields. But yes, this had tremendous implications. What it did is it created a rather different Latino population that's suddenly very cosmopolitan, particularly in the north end of the state. You had Colombianos, Chilenos, Ecuatorianos, Argentinos, Brasileños, Cubanos, Salvadoreños, Panameños. Whereas here in Southern California, they're still predominantly Californios, although as miners busted out of the gold fields, a lot of them started coming into Los Angeles, and we see a real pickup in the population, even here, far away from the gold fields in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
and they were
when
far more
the gold was running out.
Far larger.
They're like, okay, where to next? Where next are we going to colonize?
The gold rush, and far more plugged into what was going on.
So really the gold rush kind of turned California into a real magnet for, as you said, people from all over Latin America, whereas opposed before it would have been primarily, you might say, well, but Mexicans, because it was Mexico for so long. Now all of a sudden the gold strike happens, and we can think of California as kind of a melting pot of Latin America. All these guisandos coming in trying to become rich.
Oh, absolutely. And what's interesting as we look at these modern day issues of what to call this larger thing. Is it Latino? Is it Hispano? Is it Hispanic? Is it Chicano? Whatever. Actually, every single term that we use today was used back in the gold rush. Latino, Hispano, Raza, all of these, every single term, including Cholo and Pocho, except Chicano. That was the only term that was not used during the gold rush as Latinos tried to describe themselves. That's the only term that wasn't used back in the gold rush. So we've seen these issues, and of course the kids are growing up bilingual and bicultural, and they're speaking Spanish poorly, and they're throwing in English words or saying marqueta instead of mercado. Just sounds like today.
We'll be back after a short break.
The world needs more impossible, more unconventional, unreasonable, unhinged. Keep telling us we're naive, that we should get real, that we don't have a shot.
Let's see what the comments are.
For every barrier,
Great Mexican-American lesson.
we have a breakthrough. Every obstacle,
is Mexico's celebration day in the U.S.
For every cynic, these
Great
inspiring
Mexican-American
grounds
history lesson
have given
without
us
the added derogatory
an
comments
optimism.
of history against the U.S.
And we're
Against the U.S.?
Well, we've been talking about what California was like in the 1850s.
Maybe that's
we think
for a
about
reason.
California and all the changes that are going on here, but we think about the rest of the United States. Obviously, the 1850s was a very tumultuous decade here in America. Mexico, too, was having its own issues in the 1850s. Could you talk a little bit about the social and political crisis that that country was facing?
Well, actually, the crisis in Mexico was a crisis, and the crisis in the U.S. were very much related. Well, let's talk about Mexico. As a result of the dismemberment of the northern half of Mexico, you had a lot of political reaction, finger pointing, who was responsible for this, a tremendous blow to national sort of self-identity that was just beginning to emerge. And you had gradually the rise of two political parties, the conservatives and the liberals, and they were fighting with one another initially politically. However, in 1857, Mexico adopted a new constitution, and that constitution, by the way, was published here in California, so Latinos here were aware of what it said. And in the 1857, the Reform Constitution, whose adoption led to the 3-year War of Reform in Mexico, kind of a civil war in Mexico beginning in 1857. The 1857 Constitution reaffirmed Mexico's abolition of slavery. The Constitution said slavery will not be permitted in any part of the Mexican Republic. And further, by the way, let's talk of the U.S., California came in as a free state, in part because Californians here just insisted no slavery. And Latinos, almost all Latin American republics had abolished slavery. Just Latinos didn't want slavery in California. California came in as a free state. That upset the balance between the free and the slave states. The southern states were angry, and they exacted a number of prices, such as the fugitive slave law that allowed the owner of a slave to go into free state territory, bring the slave back. That led to a lot of the disequilibrium as the southern states became increasingly fearful of the institution of slavery. So here's Mexico saying, and we confirm the abolition of slavery, and on top of that, Mexico also did, and by the way, reaffirm that there is no racial requirement for being citizens, there is no racial inequality, we're all citizens of the Republic of Mexico. And Latinos here, of course, were obviously being taught about the U.S. Constitution that permitted slavery, that in fact permitted racial discrimination, that seemed to undergird white supremacy, and they were able to very much compare these two systems of governance, Mexico and the United States. And in the issues of slavery and racial equality, the United States Constitution wasn't faring so well.
Yeah. How did France get involved in all this?
Well, with the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, if you remember, the southern states were fearful that he would not vigorously defend slavery. Remember, slavery was not specifically named in the Constitution. In the Dred Scott decision of 1857, the Supreme Court, interpreting the Constitution, said, yes, slavery is allowed, and yes, said white supremacy is okay. It's allowed under the Constitution, but the southern states wanted it written in stone. So, fearing that Lincoln would not vigorously defend these institutions, they decided to withdraw from the United States and form a new country with a new constitution that specifically named and defended slavery and white supremacy forever. And of course, that led to the outbreak of the Civil War. Now, with the outbreak of the Civil War, obviously the Monroe Doctrine is dead letter. Napoleon III, the emperor in France, was no friend of the Union, no friend of the North. He loved the idea of a divided United States. He constantly was flirting with the Confederacy, maybe he would recognize them if this and that, the other. But because of the Civil War, France was able to go into Mexico. The emperor wanted to expand his empire, get rid of democracy, put his monarchy in, and start developing some cooperation with the Confederacy.
Colonizers
and he would
doing
have been just as
colonizing
happy
shit.
if the Confederates won, and actually in many ways tried it as much as he could, short of officially recognize them, to help them along in their struggle to create an independent country built on slavery and racial inequality.
So we're thinking about France as far as Mexico, but as we talked a little earlier before we got into this one thing we never think about the American Civil War is it really kind of stopped the Monroe Doctrine during 4 years. And although France certainly had its own, I want to say, adventures in Mexico, they weren't the only European country that got into Latin America during
Not at all.
time.
Not at all. Spain, for example, again, with the beginning of the Civil War, went into Santo Domingo, basically extinguished the attempts to create a republic in what's now the Dominican Republic, went on into Ecuador, got in a shooting war with Ecuador and with Peru, and then they attacked Chile in the harbor of Valparaiso. So if you're in a Latin American republic, and these republics are new, the idea of self-governance was still kind of new around the world, and only in the Western Hemisphere did you have any sizable number of democracies, and it was looking like, first of all, the North American experiment was coming to a bloody end, and now they're being attacked by France, by Spain, possibly by England. And if you're a believer in Republican democratic government in Western Hemisphere, you have to feel maybe this isn't going to last out these wars.
So,
I take issue with him saying of like they're experimenting with self-governance, because it has to be qualified that it is governance after there was all of this imposed assimilation and colonial extraction that happened. It's not as if there weren't thriving cultures and societies that had their own way of governing before this.
50s, all of these things.
It's
going
just
on
like
in Latin
this
America
Western
and in the United States.
conception of what democracy
kind of a different view
is.
of this. You know, people might be watching, although they shouldn't be changing and going to Univision or Telemundo. However, Spanish language media here in California in the 1850s was primarily newspapers, and it's absolutely fascinating to me in this book to read about the power that Spanish language newspapers had. Could you give us a bit of a background into how the Spanish language newspapers, I guess, industry developed here in California?
Well, prior to the gold rush, there weren't newspapers published in California. Newspapers were printed in Mexico and came up here, but there was no indigenous, if you will, newspaper tradition, although there was a printing press here. However, with the arrival of the gold rush and this huge population explosion, there was a need for communication and also for advertisements, quite frankly.
This also is helpful to the conversation of talking about how people who lived in Mexico before, like the Spanish came over, that like all of these borders are arbitrary, of these people just being like, no, you belong here, that there are people who are indigenous to the land. And when we have all of these colonizers coming in and saying like, you belong here or you don't, like with this rampant racial profiling, how like there is a reason why people who are like categorized more as like native tribes that aren't necessarily Latine identified, even though they may have an indigenous heritage, but they and their ancestors went through colonization, and that is continuing, which is the whole ethnic cleansing process, that it's like, because people are related, because like there were people here before you put up these borders. Politologists, sociologists, probably butchering those words, love words like experimenting with self-governance, failed state, evolving nationality. Yeah, exactly. Third world, developing country. It's like I'm Indian and like Southeast Asian, and the way people talk about India is like, oh, it's a developing nation, third world nation. It's like you do know that like it's extremely rich in resources, and there are vibrant communities and societies there way before people came and plundered the place. I don't trust any country with linear drawn frontiers. Yeah, exactly. India is one of the oldest nations of the world. Yeah, it's extremely diverse. And then when people are like, yeah, it's so squalid there, it's like, why do you think things got to be the way that they were? That there are these oppressive systems that have happened through conquering and through colonization, not just by white people, but some of the most harmful colonization that like has continued to this day and reinforced the caste system was British colonization. So yeah, I'm in agreement.
So we see the very first Spanish language newspaper begun here in Los Angeles. La Estrella de Los Angeles began in 1851, followed the next year by cool. The Spanish language half of a French newspaper. It was called El Eco del Pacifico. And then you had a whole explosion of Spanish language newspapers.
Something that's so
La
ironic
Crónica
as
in
well.
San Francisco in 1854, with Clamor Público and
ICE and profiling people, how like anytime someone is speaking Spanish, that like the Supreme Court essentially said that like they can profile people if they are speaking Spanish. And what's so ironic is that Spanish is a European language that was imposed on people. So like technically, like wouldn't that be a sign of like having more proximity to whiteness essentially? This is how you know like race is a social construct that is created by oppressors to justify whatever means and ends that they're after. I myself suffer from being Western educated. I mean, same, especially in the US, being extremely propagandized. Well, I studied philosophy, and at least I try, usually know what I don't know. Yeah, and honestly, that's like one of the hardest parts about learning and like trying to be an informed person and not be ignorant, is like knowing what you don't know and like being willing to learn more things. But yeah, that's like one of the reasons why like on this stream, I like to go over some things that I want to learn more about, that it's like there's no shame in deprogramming this Western propaganda and indoctrination, that it's like it's a good exercise for us to be going through. I don't know so many things that it's amazing. So much to learn. Yeah, exactly. There really is so much, especially like trying to reclaim all of these things, like as we're talking about colonization and these imposed ways to assimilate by colonizers, that it's like talking about this, talking about actual history, it is a way to work on decolonizing the world and to hopefully make sure that these things aren't just lost to time, because that is the intention.
In Los Angeles, 1855, La Gaceta de Santa Barbara, 1854, El Sudamericano in 1856 in San Francisco, a whole explosion. And they had agents in the newspapers. They would list where their agents were that would sell the newspaper, and their agents were all over California. In fact, in my book, I have a map of.
Since I'm such a big chatter, I'm gonna speed this up just a little bit so we can
the agents. Just to give an idea, there's a huge spread of these newspapers, and they were very important. These newspapers didn't carry only the editor's voices. They were sort of the medium.
If it gets to be too jarring,
so they contain
with
multiple
the speed,
voices, letters
let me
to
know.
the editors, self-appointed correspondence, advertisements, public letters appealing to public opinion, electoral advertisements. I mean, they really tell you a lot about what's going on in the Spanish-speaking world in California during the Gold Rush and the Civil War.
I mean, I'm assuming it was these newspapers that first let the Spanish-speaking population of California know that the Battle of the Puebla happened. So now let's bring it back to the title, El Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 1861, the Battle of the Puebla. What actually happened?
Well, we have to understand, first of all, the effects and the impact of the Civil War. So, in our last episode, just a few minutes ago, the southern states had just seceded to form a new country with a new constitution, which is all.
This conversation is very much of its time, of like this kind of almost like performative like presentation of like, oh, we're having a friendly conversation, when there are like still problematic things said, but like it's not outright hostility between an interviewer and stuff. It's like at least a semblance of being like, oh, this is a professional thing that we're doing, and we're going to still be pretty colonized in our mindset, but at least we are getting along somewhat.
Almost a word-for-word copy of the United States Constitution, only that it names and protects slavery and white supremacy forever. So the Confederate guns fire on Fort Sumter, and the Civil War is on. You have a few months later in July the very first encounter between the United States troops and the Confederate troops, or the North and the South. And what happens? The Union Army loses. It's a disaster. They're in shambles. They run back to Washington, and people are just shocked. What happened? We thought we were bigger and more powerful than the Confederacy. And from that point on, particularly in the Virginia theater of war, it just seemed like the Union Army was unable to win a battle. And people began to lose a little bit of support. They thought it was going to be over in a couple of days. And it was started to drag on to months and then to a year.
Where have we heard that before?
People were beginning to wonder, wait a minute.
Oh, this is just going to last a couple days.
Possibly going
this
to win. And of course, for Latinos, the Confederacy had expanded.
Currently,
Arizona was part of the Confederacy. The Confederacy was up to the Colorado River, and they were very explicit. Their next stop was the port of San Pedro. Now, for Latinos who didn't like the notion of slavery and white supremacy, this is a little bit worrisome. I mean, what's going to happen if the Confederacy wins? That's when they hear about.
Because it also, people at the time also recognize, like, if they were living there before they became part of, like, if they are indigenous to the land, understood that Native people, indigenous people would also be enslaved by these founders, using quotation, air quotes there. Founders are like discoverers, explorers. And so they understand that, like, if that can happen to some people, it can happen to them as well. I remember when Rome tried to conquer Persia, just an excursion. Yeah.
Troops now landing in Mexico, marching towards Mexico City, and they're thinking, oh my God, it's like the Civil War has expanded. I mean, everyone knew that Napoleon was very friendly with the Confederacy. So if there were a French regime in Mexico,
always the might
they would
is
probably
right
help the
until it
Confederacy
isn't.
certainly at least cooperate, if not actually formally ally themselves. And if they did formally ally
until
themselves,
it's proven
that's all the
wrong.
Confederacy wanted, is just one country to recognize them as an independent country. And basically, they won the war. And it was looking like this was going to happen in early May 1862. But before the French troops could get to Mexico City to depose President Juarez, they had to go through this little town called Puebla. And on May 5th, they were stopped. Now, it took 3 weeks for word of that to get from Mexico City down to Acapulco, where then the news was put on the steamship.
Oh, it got that one right.
Came from Panama, one stop in Acapulco, the next stop 2 weeks later, San Francisco. Here, the Spanish language newspapers wrote their stories, printed their papers, spread them all around, and the next day, Latinos here read, Viva Mexico, Viva Zaragoza. But what was really important to understand is it had a different effect here. It was interpreted differently here in California than it was in Mexico. In Mexico, to this day, the Battle of Puebla, oh, well, la-di-da, the Mexican army beat the French army. Well, here, the effect that it had was very different. After a year of hearing of nothing but federal defeat after federal defeat, this was like a ray of hope. Suddenly, for the first time in a major battle, the Army of Freedom and Democracy, i.e. the Mexican Army, but the Army of Freedom and Democracy finally beat the Army of Slavery and elitism. And it just had an electrifying effect on Latinos all over the West.
Dissimilar example.
We'll be back after a short break.
Rome was stretched too thin, couldn't fight a real empire too. Also,
more unconventional.
Blockhead took
unreasonable.
Commission for the heavy
unhinged. Keep telling us we're naive, that we should get real, that we don't have a shot.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good comparison.
Every obstacle.
I am not going to pretend like I know a lot of the specifics. Once again, my
for every cynic,
poor
these inspiring grounds,
U.S. education showing itself. Oh, yep, his tie does say UCLA.
Well,
this must be put on by UCLA, then.
In responding to this first final victory of
obviously.
Army of Freedom and Democracy, they wanted to honor
General Zaragoza. This guy is also part of UCLA, so there's more of an incentive for them to be
decided we need to honor him
friendly
Let's
with
raise
one another
and make him a ceremonial sword. So within a matter of weeks, they raised over $1,500. They built a sword, commissioned it, and it had really a California look. It had a grizzly bear on it. It had gold nuggets, very California, but also the Aztec eagle, etc. And they're getting ready to ship it down to General Zaragoza. It was on display at Tucker and Company in San Francisco. And just they're getting ready to put it on the steamship. They get word that Zaragoza's died of typhus. So they don't know what to do. They pull their groups together. They decide, let's send it down to President Juarez. He'll know what to do. So they actually send the sword to Mexico. It's given a military escort up to Mexico City. And the president of the Mexican Senate is just amazed. Wow, all these, and they're called Mexicanos de la Alta California, have honored Zaragoza. We're going to put this sword right next to the sword of Iturbide, who was the one who got Mexico its independence. It was apotheosis. Forget it. They love that sword. And then, of course, we know later
on. The projection in the background is kind of wild.
We don't know where it is.
It is interesting, though, that you still get to see him as you look at the interviewer.
Nobody knows. We're looking. We have an all points bulletin out, but we haven't been able to come up with it just yet.
The ultimate in 19th century bling with the gold nugget.
He just looks like he's like a
1862.
spirit
Who organized Cinco de Mayo
Jedi looking over.
What Latinos in the American West realize is, my God, we raised $1,500 without even breathing hard. We didn't even have an organization. What if we did this every month to help Juarez fight off the French? He needs money. He has to buy guns, ammunition, supplies, etc. So they quickly decided to, instead of doing this just once, they're going to do it every single month. And so in every single town where you had a sizable Latino population, they formed, it was called an organization called the Junta Patriótica Mexicana. And there were 129 locations in California, Nevada, Oregon, and Arizona that formed a Junta Patriótica Mexicana.
We get a description
and
as to
in
who the
each town,
interviewer
the
is?
people that joined pledged to give $1 a month. Now, $1 was about 1 day's wage average for the working man. It'd be like today, pledging dues of $100 a month.
He's the
That's pretty heavy. There were 14,000 members of the Juntas Patrióticas Mexicanas. This was an immense organization.
Of medicine.
And they could raise money very, very quickly.
Director
and they met every month, and every month, each one of these 129 locations would have a speaker, and the speaker would almost always start off by talking about what happened at the gates of Puebla on El Cinco de Mayo de 1862.
It's not Mexican
so
at
it became
all,
seared in, and of course, at this
American
point, the Union Army is really losing.
Latinos
McClellan's disastrous Peninsula Campaign, second
during
Battle of Bull Run. I mean,
mid-19th
it's just looking
century.
horrible. Lincoln is replacing general after general after general, but Latinos here, but we know of one general who could beat them, Zaragoza, and he was like the model, and it helped. They wanted to help Lincoln raise the public opinion, because public opinion for the Civil War support is beginning to plummet at this point. But Latinos decided we have to help both Lincoln and Juarez, and that's why they decided to create a new public memory. They very deliberately decided to do this to raise public morale. So beginning a year after the Battle of Puebla, here on Los Angeles, you had the very first commemoration. A year ago, today, blah, 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 blah. But it was very much about the issues of the Civil War, of freedom against slavery, of racial equality against racial inequality, of democracy versus elitist rule. And they always used both the United States and the Mexican flag. They would march through the streets of town, they would have the speeches, and thus a new public memory was born, El Cinco de Mayo.
And that's really, when you think the name of the book,
That little detail is interesting. It appeals definitely to the American empire sensibility of like, just so you know, they had both flags, because that's always an issue that these like right-wing white supremacists and fascists in general that are like, what at these protests, why don't they have the American flag?
My own American tradition. I really want to bring home to viewers that although they were obviously celebrating,
it also just represents that it's like
that they were building at this time.
These nation states
later on during the Civil War for how these
do not matter as much as the people.
And we don't really think about it.
Who were living
It's not really studied because California is so far west of where the major battles took place in the Civil War. But California had a role in the Civil War, as did its Latino population.
That it didn't matter as much to them.
How that civil society that was developed through the Juntas Patrióticas Mexicanas and El Cinco de Mayo celebrations was able then to come together and help the Union during the war.
Well, California was on the opposite coast, and only about 500 Californians actually saw action in the Eastern Theater of War. However, there were about 16,000 people from California involved directly militarily in the Civil War for a number of reasons. To begin with, the Civil War cost about $4 million a day. Now that's in 1860 dollars. That'd be, who knows what it would be today. But that was
probably
very,
what
very
we're
costly.
spending now
And
with this illegal
most of that was being
immoral
financed by gold
war
from California and
against
silver from
Iran.
Nevada. We financed the Civil War. If it weren't for
Venezuela.
that, I don't think the Civil War would have lasted more than a few months. However, the Confederates also knew that California was financing the Civil War.
Palestine,
And there were
Cuba.
some strong Confederate tendencies in California. So that the 16,000 members in uniform, and this includes Latinos who were in the Army, in the cavalry, you had whole detachments of Spanish-speaking Native California cavalry. They basically had to play a blocking role to keep the Confederates from either making incursions into California or Nevada, Oregon, or as the French went into Mexico. Remember, the French and the Confederates were very, very friendly to forestall a possible French thrust up into the West. So they played a defensive
Probably
role
like
to keep
1,000
California
cows
and the
a
West
day
and all their treasures
less.
on the side of the Union.
So,
yeah, if we're
as we both
talking
know,
about
the
like
American Civil War turned
modern,
out well. The Union won, and
it's like,
the Mexican
we're
Civil War, the French were driven out, or
spending,
the French
what
were
is
driven
it
out.
in the
So
US,
now we
like
have a celebration for battles that are done. When did it start
$1
to change
billion,
from being
like
a
$3
celebration
billion
of
a
the stuff
day?
that Zaragoza did and the Mexican army defeating the French,
There's
and
always
very much a
money for
particular
war.
commemoration of a military victory, into what we kind of know about it today? Because frankly, most people in the Anglophone world think of Cinco de Mayo. It's like, okay, well, they're putting up the Corona beer ads, and we're going to start having a party. It definitely moved from a commemoration to more kind of, I want to say, a secular festival. How did that happen?
Well, even in the Hispanophone world, it's advertised as Drinko de Mayo. Still says, let's have a party, dude. Let's go get drunk. So let's look at the history after the Civil War and the French intervention.
It's
now, what happened for
roughly
about 15,
being
20 years
reported on
afterwards,
$1
the
to $2
veterans
billion
of both
per
the
day
Union Army,
that the U.S. is
Spanish-speaking veterans of
spending,
both the Union Army and the
but
Mexican Army, because a lot of
it's
Latinos
much
also
more
went
than
south and joined the
that.
Mexican
They're
Army.
underreporting
Mariano
things.
Vallejo,
They
for
aren't
example,
reporting
from
all
Sonoma,
of
had
the
one son in each
damages
front.
that are
Platon
lost, like
Vallejo was
these
a surgeon with the Union
carriers
forces.
and
He was president of the
planes
Second
that
Battle of Bull Run. Uladislav, his
were
other son, was
like
a
$1
captain of the
trillion.
Mexican Army, one of President Juarez's personal bodyguard. He was happy. His sons were defending freedom and democracy all over the North American continent. So these veterans every year would put on their either Mexican or Union Army uniforms here in Los Angeles. They parade through the streets of town. Then they would give their speeches. We don't know exactly what they said, but probably they were telling, this is why we fought. Now, their children, who had been born during the Gold Rush and the Civil War, who were growing up bilingual and bicultural, and actually had experienced this, although they were young at the time. So as their parents began to die off, their bilingual, bicultural children in the 1870s to 1880s began to pick up this celebration. Now, these children of the veterans began to have their children, a third generation.
Happened on the
their
side
children,
there.
the grandchildren of
It
the
was like
veterans,
looking
really had
off
no
to the
personal
side.
knowledge or acquaintance. So they actually had to begin to teach them, my children, this is why we celebrate
his
Cinco
eyes
de
were
Mayo.
big.
And just as those children were becoming adults, the Mexican Revolution explodes. You had this huge wave of refugees fleeing all of that. About 500,000 folks went to Texas.
Only
About 500,000 came
will
to
show the
California.
real
They got
numbers.
here.
Yeah,
They noticed that the
exactly.
local Spanish-speaking population did something every Cinco de Mayo, and it pulled the community together, and they could raise
Especially
funds
when
for all
it
kinds of
comes,
things.
I mean, this has always been the case.
And just as they noticed that, that generation began to die off.
Especially when
So
it
these
comes to
incoming refugees
empires, but
continued this custom
particularly
of
with
doing something on
this
Cinco de Mayo, but
administration,
they
this
didn't have the
regime,
history. We didn't have Chicago
they
State Departments. We
are
didn't have a press doing this.
intentionally
So they had to kind of create their own reasons. Why do we
and very
celebrate? In essence,
blatantly
it became very
covering up a lot
Mexico-centric.
of
They focused only
information.
on the military
Not like
aspects of
this
battle
hasn't
play.
happened
The Mexican
before,
Army, the French
but
Army, they used
it's even
music from
worse.
Mexico
Like,
at the time,
and the
dances from
casualties.
Mexico.
There have been
They just
way
lost all the
more people who have
historical
died than what they're
accounts
talking
that
about.
Latinos here had been using, tying them to the Gold Rush, Civil War,
On
and
both
onto the Mission
sides,
period.
which there shouldn't
so
even
they kind
be
of recreated the
sides.
reasons and the celebration. So that's when we lost that historic linkage, and every generation since then has recut and refit Cinco de Mayo to what's going on to with it, and now we get to this day. It's now celebrated all over the United States, but nobody knows why. We've lost the memory.
Professor David Hayes Bautista, the author of El Cinco de Mayo, An American Tradition. Thanks so much for being on Subtext today.
My pleasure.
And thanks for watching this episode. We'll see you next time.
Okay. The incessant line of your headmaster. Headmaster. I love that. But yes, it is atrocious. And he's always been a liar. You're exactly right. Like, no sense of integrity, no principles, no sense of morality. It's just what will get him money and keep him out of, from having any sort of accountability. Hello, Slick Eye. Welcome. We're just going through some headlines, picking up from yesterday. How are you doing? Okay, this is Democracy Now! We'll hear from Amy Goodman. What has been going on today? So this will probably make me angry because she actually does like decent coverage on the atrocities that the US is committing. As you're mentioning, the atrocities of the headmaster and all of his cronies and the oligarchs pulling his strings. My first contact knowing about him was like 20 years ago. An acquaintance of mine got into a pyramid scheme. Oh my God. And it was supported by Trump. Was it the college? I mean, he's had many. Like last week we watched a video on how he has always been this extremely cruel adversary and oppressor of Native people because of these casinos that he was running, that he bankrupted, by the way, because he's an idiot and he's just so greedy and selfish that he didn't even care enough to like get it to run well. He just was stealing all the money. It was called ACN. Okay, I'm going to be looking this up.
Now.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
Not sure
President
I knew about
Trump's
this.
warned Iran will be blown off the face of the earth if U.S. warships are targeted in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump.
I didn't hear that. I can't even keep up with all of the fucking bullshit that comes out of that butthole's mouth.
Trump's renewed threat to destroy Iran came as the Pentagon rebranded its war from Operation Epic Fury to Project Freedom, turning its focus to reopening the Strait of Hormuz to commercial.
They're changing the name because everyone is calling it Epstein's Fury, and they can't get around that branding now. Even on Fox News, which is state regime propaganda, that it is, they have lost the narrative there because the comments are all like, why are we here? I mean, not all. There are some people who support it. Bloodthirsty, racists, Islamophobes, imperialists, American exceptionalists. But those are mostly boomers. It is mostly a boomer station. Anyway, they have lost control over that. So now we need to come up with a different name. It's not Project Freedom, Project... the opposite of freedom. I don't know. Well, I call it myself Operation Epic Fail. Yeah, exactly. Epic Fail, Epic Fortnite. Yeah, it's all
on Monday, Iranian state media said the U.S. had fired on small cargo boats carrying goods and passengers, killing 5 civilians. U.S. Central Command confirmed it had attacked several boats, but insisted they were threatening commercial vessels. Separately, the United Arab Emirates said it had come under attack from drones and missiles that caused a fire in an oil facility at the port of
Freedom from whom?
The port is outside the Strait of Hormuz.
Seems like the world needs freedom from the U.S. empire.
That doesn't require transiting through the strait. 3 Indian nationals were injured in the attack. Iran claimed it was not responsible. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., a man who scaled the Frederick Douglass Bridge to protest the war in Iran remained on the bridge overnight and into a 5th consecutive day.
Fierce.
Guido Reichstatter, a veteran and father of 2 from Florida, said in a statement, quote, "I'm calling on the people of the United States to bring an immediate end to the Trump regime's illegal war in Iran and the removal of the regime's power through mass, nonviolent, direct action and non-cooperation."
Hella windy up there. But
Iran executed
it got
3
everyone's
men on
attention,
Sunday
so
in
it's
connection
effective.
with anti-government protests earlier this year. Mehdi Razouli, Mohammad Reza Miri, and Ibrahim Dolatabadi were all hanged in Mashhad. According to Iran Human Rights Monitor, Iran carried out 656 executions in the first 3 months this year.
Jeez.
Since March, during the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran, there have been 24 political executions. Meanwhile, Nobel Peace Laureate Narges Mohammadi has been hospitalized in critical condition after collapsing in Zanjan prison.
Yeah,
she suffered a heart attack in March and has since experienced chest pain, severe headaches, and double vision. But authorities continue to deny her transfer to specialist care in Tehran. Mohammadi has been arrested 13 times and sentenced to a cumulative 31 years in prison. She received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2023 for her advocacy against torture and the death penalty in Iran. In Gaza, Israeli strikes killed at least 3 Palestinians in separate attacks Monday. Earlier today, an Israeli drone attack killed a Palestinian in Gaza City, leaving several others badly injured. On Sunday, an Israeli military broadcaster reported its forces had expanded control of the Gaza Strip to nearly 60% of the territory and were prepared to resume a full-scale assault if ordered. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces shot and killed a 26-year-old Palestinian man Monday as they raided a busy commercial area of Nablus. Nayef Samaroblus died after he was shot in the head. He'd reportedly just dropped his wife at a nearby hospital to give birth to their first child. At least 4 others, including 2 children, were struck and wounded by live ammunition. The U.S. military says it launched another strike on a vessel.
I'm gonna help my kid with some homework. Yeah, no worries. This is evil. The imperialist evil that is centered around ethno-supremacy and expansion has to stop. And they won't stop until we make them, which is why I think we need a world strike. We need a global strike, because we have to stop the machine. I don't see really many other ways for recourse.
The Caribbean killing 2 people Monday. The Trump administration once again claimed the vessel was carrying drugs without providing any evidence. Since September, the Pentagon says it's killed at least 188 people in strikes on boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. The attacks have been widely condemned as illegal.
Yeah, war
Ukraine's
crimes.
interior minister says Russian attacks on Monday killed 14 people and wounded at least 60 others across multiple regions of Ukraine, with reports of heavy shelling and damage to residential areas. Russia's latest assault came as President Vladimir Putin said he would declare a unilateral ceasefire in Ukraine for Friday and Saturday as Russia marks Victory Day, commemorating the 81st anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. Meanwhile, Russia faces a growing environmental disaster along its Black Sea coast after Ukraine struck the oil refining
celebrating the
port of
defeat of
for the 4th time in less than
America.
3 weeks. The attacks created large oil spills, huge clouds of acrid smoke, and toxic black rain that fell on residents and contaminated more than 30 miles of coastline. In New Orleans, a federal appeals court blocked criminal court clerk Calvin Duncan from taking office Monday, which was scheduled to be his first day on the job. Duncan won election to the post in November, just 5 years after his release from prison after serving 28 years for a murder he did not commit. He was exonerated in 2021 and earned his law degree a year later at age 60. His position was eliminated last Friday when the Republican governor, Jeff Landry, signed legislation abolishing it. Governor Landry also canceled upcoming primary elections following Thursday's Supreme Court ruling, which struck down the last remaining major provision of the Voting Rights Act. On Monday, protesters marched through the streets of New Orleans demanding an end to racist gerrymandering of Louisiana's congressional maps and the reinstatement of Calvin Duncan to his elected position.
You know, Calvin Duncan won a race with 68% of the vote. You know, so that's the citizens of New Orleans. I think that should be honored and respected.
The majority.
And the fact that it's not, I think anybody who have a sense of right and wrong should stand up against that, because that's a direct strike against democracy. And if we don't stand against this, then, you know, America is just dissolving, as far as I'm concerned.
Alabama's state legislature adjourned a special session Monday after demonstrators entered the State House in Montgomery to protest Republican plans to adopt a gerrymandered map that dilutes the power of black voters. Currently, an injunction bars Alabama from redrawing its congressional maps before 2030. But following the Supreme Court's ruling last week gutting the Voting Rights Act, Republican Attorney General Steve Marshall filed an emergency motion asking a court to lift the prohibition. This is Dee Reed, an organizer with Black Lives Matter.
It is a strategic attempt to erase the Voting Rights Act, which we know is our strongest protection against disenfranchisement. Protections that were not given. Protections that were fought for right here in Alabama by the people from Selma, by the people from Greenville, by the people from Birmingham, and by the people from Montgomery.
A new investigation by the Washington Post looks at the increasing use of force by guards.
Alabama has already brought cases to the Supreme Court for their gerrymandered maps that were struck down, but then they just kept going anyway because they're like, okay, stop us. Alabama is extremely gerrymandered. I mean, all of these states in the South, these states that were the Confederacy, that are the Confederacy, that are trying to make the whole nation a confederacy again, that all of them are extremely gerrymandered.
Immigrants detained in ICE jails nationwide. The Post found nearly 800 cases in which ICE guards used physical violence or deployed chemical agents on jailed immigrants during Trump's first year back in office, a 37% increase compared to the previous year. The skyrocketing use of force comes as the Trump administration packs ICE jails beyond their capacity as part of his mass deportation campaign. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security has shuttered its internal watchdog offices that track the abuse of immigrants in custody. The U.S. Supreme
I wonder
Court Monday
why.
Stepped in to block a lower court ruling.
They aren't
that would
even
have
trying
cut
to
off
hide
access
this
to
shit.
the abortion pill mifepristone for millions of people nationwide. The order was signed by Justice Samuel Alito, who put a one-week hold on major changes to how the pill can be prescribed, temporarily restoring nationwide telehealth and mail access through May 11th. The temporary pause gives the Supreme Court time to consider next steps in the case as it weighs emergency requests filed by the manufacturers of mifepristone. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party, BJP, is tightening its political grip after winning a key legislative election in one of India's most populous states, West Bengal. The victory brought an end to 15 years of rule by Mamata Banerjee, who is one of Modi's most outspoken opponents. In the run-up to the election, an estimated 9 million people were stripped of their right to vote, removed from the voter registration in a move that disproportionately targeted Muslims in West Bengal. The 2026 Pulitzer Prize winners were announced on Monday.
Ethno-supremacy, religious supremacy.
Sahar Bora, a New York Times contributor, won the prize for breaking news photography for his work documenting Israel's war and siege on Gaza. M. Gesson of the New York Times won the Pulitzer Prize for opinion writing. Meanwhile, a special citation was awarded to Miami Herald investigative journalist Julie Brown for her groundbreaking reporting in 2017 and 18 that exposed Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking network. In Wisconsin, animal rights advocates reached a deal with Ridgeland Farms to secure the release of 1,500 beagles bred for medical experimentation. Their victory came after hundreds of activists attempted to enter a property owned by Ridgeland Farms, where beagles are held in brutal conditions, subjected to surgeries without anesthesia and other abuses. The protest earlier this month led to the arrest of at least 25 people, with police injuring scores of activists at the action. And in New York, this year's Met Gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art faced protests on Monday. The event was sponsored by Amazon's billionaire founder Jeff Bezos and his wife Lauren Sanders.
Anna Wintour, I have been saying this for a while. She is overtly fascist. Vogue is a fascist publication. It is ruling class propaganda. It is meant to emphasize celebrity worship so that we forget all of these crimes that they are committing. Look how ugly this dress is, too. This cost like $20 million or some shit, and she looks bad. This is because fascists do not have good taste, because it is inherently retrograde. They're trying to conserve certain things. It's like, okay, so you don't value diversity, you don't value progress or experimentation that is breaking barriers. I want to go over some of the fashions, but anyone who showed up, I think we should not partake in any of their art, whatever it is. I can't wait to go to Kolkata, West Bengal, and revitalize my grandma's homeland through me. Oh, do you have it planned? Yeah, I hope you get to go. Yeah, and be able to actually, like, feel that ancestral memory, like, be realized in your own perception.
Bezos ahead of the gala. The activism group Everyone Hates Elon projected video interviews with Amazon workers onto the Bezos' Manhattan penthouse alongside slogans including, "If you can buy the Met Gala, you can pay more taxes," and "No red carpet for Trump's billionaires." On Friday, the group placed hundreds of bottles of fake urine inside the Metropolitan Museum of Art, referring to complaints by Amazon workers of having to skip bathroom breaks and urinate in bottles. The group also plastered ads across the city reading, quote, "The Bezos Met Gala, brought to you by the company that powers ICE."
Like, get some plans going, do let me know. That's very exciting.
Cloud computing contract with
I want to go back
Amazon's
to India.
labor union founder Chris Smalls was arrested outside the
It's
Met
not
Gala
necessarily
after allegedly jumping
always
a
the
barricade.
safest place
Meanwhile, labor
for
unions
being, like,
staged
gender
a
non-conforming.
ball without
It
billionaires
used to be
in Manhattan's
before
meatpacking district as an alternative fashion show to
colonizing.
the Met Gala. Amazon, Whole Foods, Washington Post, Starbucks, and Uber workers walked the runway in looks by immigrant designers. This is SEIU President April Barrett.
They can try to take our rights. They can try to redraw the lines. They can try to control the systems, but they will never, ever be able to replicate the brilliance, the creativity, the resilience of the people they are trying to hold down. So this ball without billionaires is not just about fashion. It is about power. It's about telling the truth. That people who sew and care and drive and cook and clean and secure.
Yeah, it's not just about saying no to what they're doing. It's about providing an alternative.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in Toronto, speaking at Radio Days North America. Juan Gonzalez is in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy.
There was a few weeks ago where Juan Gonzalez, he was in the studio with Amy Goodman in New York, and they looked so excited to be together. She, like, patted him a couple of times, and I was like, I don't know what their personal lives are like, but are they fucking? Not like it's any of our business, but that did cross my mind. Okay. So getting through all of that bullshit, I mean, it's good reporting, but very frustrating to hear about. I mean, it should be activating as well of getting us to organize. I, again, think we still need a global strike. We definitely need a national strike in the US that is concerted with mutual aid, so that striking isn't just reserved for these one-off days and for the people privileged enough who can take work off. So if you're in the US, you can look up General Strike US. There's a link in the Twitch profile. And I also created a link for a World Strike form that you can fill out. So this is a speech that Zohran Mamdani gave on May Day, and the last time a mayor did this was Fiero LaGuardia. Also, he didn't go to the Met Gala, which hasn't been done since 2002, I believe. So he's on the right side of history. It's cool to see a mayor be pro-union.
Good afternoon, New York City! How we doing? How we doing? Happy May Day, everybody!
We're not able to pick up the crowd that much with his mic.
The activists and the hard-working men and women of New York City. Let's hear it for them. Now, I would not be standing in front of you as the mayor of our city were it
It's also cool to see him in front of these signs: no ICE, no war, no billionaires.
for the support of working people. And it is such a pleasure to be back here with all of you in Washington Square Park, the cradle of worker power. Time and again, New York City workers have shaped history from where we stand right now. We speak of Eugene Debs calling for the 8-hour workday and the end of child labor, where 20,000 plus called for change after the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire in 1911. Workers have won the rights that are taken for granted today. The 40-hour work week, the weekend, overtime pay, minimum wage, Social Security, workplace safety standards. These have all been won by the workers who came before us.
Unions.
And yet we know that those rights are not inevitable. We have to work together to not just protect them, but to
the little saxophone is so cute. That
City Hall
emoji.
is committed to doing everything we can to put working people right at the heart of that agenda. That is why we have delivered millions of dollars to workers and small businesses who are being ripped off by mega corporations.
It's interesting the captions keep varying between all caps and not.
That is why I stood there alongside NYSNA nurses and Starbucks workers on the picket line.
Yep.
And that is why we continue to fight for those who power this city as we look to deliver universal child care, faster buses, cheaper groceries, protecting our neighbors from the cruelty of ICE.
Yep.
And yes, working to tax the wealthiest and the most profitable corporations in New York City.
I also love that he didn't meet with the King of England, the King of Britain, when he came over, and instead said that he should return the Kohinoor diamond to India.
And I'm going to give you a hint. The answer is always union workers.
And they should, you know, give back everything they've stolen while they're at it.
Who drives our buses and cleans our streets? Union Strong is more than just a slogan. It is a practice of solidarity.
Coming to the stage is Shawana Berry from La Una Local 79. Woo!
Come on up, Shawana.
In the words of Samuel Gompers, you can't do it unless you organize. Together we will show the world what solidarity means. That a people united, a people organized,
a whole topic,
cannot be
I know.
defeated. So when I say union, you say strong. Union! 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 Happy May Day, New York City!
He knows that unionizers love chanting and are used to it, know how to do it.
We gather here on May Day, International Workers' Day, a day rooted in resistance, in power, and in the truth that workers make this world and this country run.
I know that the help with everybody here, we can win a fair first contract. I need everyone here to stop buying Starbucks and to uninstall the Starbucks app from your phone.
When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do? When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do?
Who doesn't want $30 an hour, y'all? $30 an hour? I'm going to be living in a high-rise building in Manhattan, I tell you. All right? You know, I want to say something that's very important. As we listen to a lot of people speak here today, labor and immigrant rights are intertwined.
Yep.
Our fight for fair wages, safe workplaces, and dignity on the job is the same fight for immigrant justice. Right. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Yep.
Vendor power, ICE out, and tax the rich.
Yes. So strange to see a democratic country having so much problems with unions. Yeah, it is an extremely anti-union country where there are all of these union busting laws that are passed, that union busting is never punished, really, that there are all these workarounds. It's because the ruling class understands that it's like really our main avenue for getting any sort of power and human dignity back to us. But yeah, it just goes to show that like the reason why I said like democratic in quotations is because we have this semblance of a democracy that has existed, but why is it that our material conditions and rights have deteriorated so consistently over time? I mean, particularly with this fascist regime, but yeah, that's how America is on the path it is. Yep. Exactly. And they have also said that, like, starting to create definitions of, like, people who are engaged in union work are Antifa, and they've categorized Antifa as a terrorist group. They've yet to categorize the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK, as a terrorist group. I wonder why that is. They've also chosen to defund the Southern Public Law Center. Nope. Southern Poverty Law Center, where they actually do research and investigate hate groups. So, I wonder who's in power.
That Iran will be blown off the face of the earth if U.S. warships are targeted in the Strait of Hormuz.
Both your right and left
Trump's
are the same
renewed
capitalist
threat to
mongers.
destroy Iran
Yeah,
came
it
as
is
the
true. I mean, we
Pentagon
don't even really
rebranded
have
its war from
true, like,
Operation Epic
leftist
Fury
representation
to Project Freedom, turning its focus to
in
reopening the Strait of Hormuz to commercial
the
traffic
ruling
amidst
class,
the
really.
widening energy crisis. On Monday, Iranian state media
The Democratic
said the
Party
US
is
had fired
definitely
on small
fascist
cargo boats
light.
carrying goods and passengers, killing 5 civilians.
Or,
US
as you put
Central
it,
Command
capitalist
confirmed
mongers.
It attacked several boats, but insisted
Which is
they were
also how we
threatening
got to where
commercial
we're at.
vessels. Separately, the United Arab Emirates said it had come under attack.
Oh, I guess I probably should have, like, teed this up. But, I mean, going back to what you were saying, it doesn't mean that, like, there isn't the possibility of leftist movements being co-opted by people who are wanting to enrich themselves, who have this thirst for power, who are corrupt. Like, that can still happen. But especially in the US, we have not even gotten to a point where that's even possible for it to be co-opted. I mean, it's growing, as you're seeing, like, all of those people gathering. Like, this, I think, is the most that, like, young people have been plugged into unionizing in a really, really long time. And that says a lot about what the current conditions are like. Okay. Trump's war on Iran and Strait of Hormuz crisis reveal limits of American imperial power. I wanted to watch this. I think it's really great to understand how the empire can be brought down, and really how, you know, like, the US is consistently called a paper tiger, how when it actually comes to real power, not just bombing people, but, like, actually getting, like, a consensus with things, that the US is doing what empires do and just trying to do it through violence rather than having any sort of diplomatic means, which is still a form of imperialism, but it is becoming ever more present with the regime that this is in. Well, extreme moments bring extreme movements. Of course, I would just call them basic movements. Yeah, I agree. Exactly. Especially with, like, how, like, what now is considered, like, centrist in the US is not even, like, right-wing. It's, like, far right. And that is not an accident because, like, as you were saying, the opposition party, again, air quotes, the Democratic Party, they are corporate stooges. You can predict how all of these people are going to vote by looking at their donors. Like, I wish people were more interesting than that, like, they had more principles or, like, a belief system that they were, like, advocating for or something. No, it's because I mean, a lot of them are white supremacists, so there's that. But they are always voting in the way that their donors want them to. So that's an activity I like to do, of, like, looking at who is voting for what, looking up their donors always explains.
from drones and missiles that caused a fire at an oil facility at the port of Fujairah. The port is outside the Strait of Hormuz and is one of few export routes that doesn't require transiting through the strait. 3 Indian nationals were injured in the attack. Iran claimed it was not responsible. The Iranian foreign minister in a social media post warned the U.S. against being dragged back into a quagmire and dismissed Project Freedom as, quote, Project Deadlock. To discuss all...
We have a new name, Project Deadlock. I would even say, and I was thinking about this with, when I first heard the name of Project Freedom. What's the opposite of freedom? I mean, death. I mean, like, enslavement. But, yeah, Project, just death. Project Deadlock.
Listen more. We're joined by Toby Jones, Associate Professor of Middle East History at Rutgers University, writes frequently on oil, war in the Middle East, and is author of Desert Kingdom, How Oil and Water Forged Modern Saudi Arabia. Also wrote Running Dry, Essays on Energy, Water, and Environmental Crisis. We welcome you, Professor Jones, to Democracy Now! If you can talk about, well, what some are calling this project
legal to receive donations
with President
for
Trump
the campaign.
to blow
exactly.
Up Iran,
that corporations have
right
essentially the same rights as like human beings as well. That, with that decision of Citizens United, which I'm actually going to bring up a video that addresses that. It meant that they can have that when people donate money, it's a form of free speech. So that's just like blatant capitalism, blatant fascism, if we're being honest. So, yeah, it's of course going to lead to oligarchy because that is like the intended goal of capitalism. We are currently in late stage capitalism where we have the richest people in the world who have ingratiated themselves with the government, who are buying up all of these government contracts. They are profiting from everything that they are doing. These ICE raids, the for-profit prison system, the AI surveillance, the industrial war complex, these environmental and like oil companies, or I guess not environmental, but energy companies that are not environmentally friendly, and that they are profiting from that as well, from pharmaceuticals, cutting all of these regulations. It's like it is doing what it was built to do. We just have people who are like stepping on the gas right now. And I mean, it is also like this corrupt system is supported in a lot of ways of like with systemic racism and xenophobia and sexism and queerphobia, ableism that also needs to be done away with.
We're seeing two things in the region. One is an intensification or an escalation of the saber rattling that's become characteristic of Trump's disposition and sort of approach to tensions in the Gulf, a crisis that he created along with Israel invading and launching an attack on Iran in February. He can't control the narrative, and so he escalates. He also can't control what's happening on the waters of the Gulf. It's become clear the limits of American naval power, its military capacity to dictate terms in the Gulf are significantly constrained. Iran, through sort of asymmetric tactics, a minimalist approach to sort of its own response to threats in the region, has basically handcuffed the United States' ability to dictate terms. What now sort of circulates over the Gulf is
only
an environment
the headmaster, I love that he used that word, if only he would be handcuffed.
Commercial shipping. Nobody trusts that Iran won't in fact carry out attacks on cargo or other merchant shipping, and so the region is in the grip of paralysis. Limited American imperial power, an aggressive or at least a marginally capable Iranian military force has revealed both the limits of American capacity and has frozen the region in crisis. I will say one other thing though before we sort of carry on the conversation. We should be wary about any claims about what's happening in the Gulf and what's not happening in the Gulf, particularly at the Strait. We know that ships aren't moving in a much diminished capacity. Neither oil or other merchant shipping seems to be moving according to our normal registers of observation, the normal tools that we use to look. But
only
there is
allows
some
maybe
transit
$1,000
the thing that's important to keep in mind as we go
campaign
forward and
money.
try to make sense of all
Wow.
of this is how little
Even
we
for
actually
billboards,
know.
you
There's an
know.
information
Yeah,
blackout.
that
Data is
certainly
largely
helps with
unavailable.
democracy.
This is true within the states in the region, and it's largely true on the waters
Or
of the Gulf
giving
itself.
free
There's still so much that we don't
ham
know
in the
about what's actually
street.
happening that to
You
some extent,
cannot
to a large
legally
extent, we're
declare all
beholden
your
to the
campaign
extreme rhetoric
expenses
coming
under
from all
that
sides.
limited budget. You will be wrecked.
And Professor Jones, I wanted to ask you, in less than 10
And it is,
days,
of course,
on May
to avoid
14th,
unfair game,
Trump
and
will
of
be traveling
course,
to China for a summit with President Xi Jinping.
influence
Trump
of any
already
kind.
postponed this trip once because of the war. How do you think his failure to
Which
negotiate
also
an end to the conflict will
explains why, I mean, like, every governing system has its issues because humans are fallible and selfish and cruel a lot of the time. But like, is it any accident that Spain, like, do you have a president or a prime minister? This is my poor education showing it something. That like the leader of your country is like one of the only voices that has been very outspoken against this war, very outspoken against the genocide. It's like, it definitely helps that he was able to get into power because of those structures.
Expect those talks in Beijing.
Well, it's hard to know what Trump's sort of calculation of all of this is, or where he sees China fitting in. I think that it's largely believed that both China and Russia, ostensibly two rivals to American global hegemony, are supporting Iran either through financial means or through oil consumption or through other forms of material and financial support. It's unclear whether Trump will challenge China's role in the region. Once again, what's important to take away here, or part of what's important to take away here, is that through an unprovoked assault on Iran, Trump has accelerated, or at least clarified, the real limits of American imperial power.
Which you've also seen, like,
Americans' hegemonic decline,
how leftist movements can be
this spirals out,
co-opted.
and how Trump and the Americans see the Gulf as a centerpiece of its global power. Whether
which
China
is
actively engaged in supporting
good for
Iran, or whether it's quietly engaged,
us, especially in the U.S. with more rising leftism,
a significant rival to the United States
understand the pitfalls.
But it's more clear than ever. And whether Trump is in a capacity to either address that or do anything about it is not only unclear, it seems unlikely to me. Trump has put the United States, I know I'm not one to celebrate the American empire, but he's definitely put the United States in a much more vulnerable and weakened position globally as a result of this war.
And you mentioned this historic trend of the United States, its alignment with Gulf countries and the Middle East as
in
key
California,
to U.S. strategy of domination
there are
around the
places
world.
where it is over $8 a gallon
for
gas.
Well, think of the United States as having engaged in a 50-year project to secure its primacy in the Gulf. It succeeded the British Empire in the late 1970s and early 1980s. It engaged in the Iran-Iraq War in the middle of the 1980s,
exactly.
which was the first time
its
it projected its naval
heritage
military
of
power in the region
empire.
in an attempt to escort Kuwaiti and other Arab oil shipping in and out of the Strait of Hormuz.
Where I used to
and ever
live,
since then, we should understand
and where I
Desert
was in
Storm,
politics, we were in a zone with a few industries and such. There was a health concern about the old cement maker.
Its primacy in the region.
Known recently that is burning pneumatics.
But also by maintaining relationships
the cement making
with awful
is
authoritarian
not such a big
regimes
deal
in
now.
the region.
Imagine if they could donate big money to the local parties legally.
It's called into question the efficacy of that system and that arrangement. And it has created the material conditions in the region where Iran, through asymmetric and minimalistic measures, has been able to undermine
exactly.
There, in real terms and in symbolic ways.
I'm sure there's corruption in other ways, like other avenues for it, but it does help, certainly, to have these legal structures in place to enforce
if you can talk about
more
particular
ethical
Gulf
means.
Countries and their relationship with the United States right now.
I guess I shouldn't even
is
say
it
ethical,
shifting?
just
You
not
wrote the book Desert Kingdom, How Oil and Water Forge Modern
overtly
Saudi Arabia.
exploitative.
If you could talk about Saudi Arabia, I mean, you have Jared Kushner, the Trump's son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, two developers who are the so-called peace envoys. Jared Kushner got, what, something like $2 billion from the Saudi Sovereign Fund, very close to MBS, the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. And then you have the United Arab Emirates that just pulled out of OPEC and says today that it was hit by a
Trump
drone.
and his
Iran
family
says this was
and his
not their drone,
friends, these
and
oligarchs,
is now
these
suffering from yet
billionaires,
another fire.
are the only ones profiting from this.
Yeah, these are steadfast allies of the United States. What's interesting over the last 2.5 decades is that also means they're steadfast allies of Israel. So we should understand the Israelis, the Saudis, the Emiratis, and the Americans in particular as being in full alignment on their approach to the regional dynamic. That largely means they're in lockstep in confronting and in narrating a particular framework of thinking about Iran as their principal rival in the region. This is one of the products of the 2003 invasion and the Iraq War. That doesn't mean that there is a rivalry within the region, or that there are challenges to how stable this arrangement is. Saudi Arabia, for example, was on the precipice
that's how you know,
with
like,
Israel
how late stage this capitalism is. Is that, like,
Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, while both
they
aligning with Israel and the
realize
United
there
States,
aren't
have their own regional rivalry that's taking shape. As you mentioned, the UAE
there aren't
recently
things
withdrew
in
as of this
place
month, has withdrawn from
legally
OPEC.
to
That's
stop
largely
them,
a
or
reflection
there
of the
are,
internal
but they are
power
not
struggle
being
between Saudi Arabia
pursued,
and
that they
UAE over the
have
control of global energy markets, and also a reflection of kind
stacked
of
the
shifting
system
economic
in many
capacities in both
ways over
countries.
this, like,
Their
long
rivals in South
project
Yemen,
that
their
they've been
rivals in Sudan, where
pursuing,
they compete
that, like,
various,
they
competing
don't even
factions
care
militarily and
because they
politically.
know they
So we
won't
see a
be held
regional order
accountable.
that's more or less in alignment, where Iran stands as the principal problem, but we see fissures within that regional order.
Yeah, how
What that
he
means
was,
for
like,
Americans,
selling.
rent seekers, like
He's
Jared
always
Kushner
been
and those close to the Trump administration, is that in some
crook.
ways that relationship is transactional. How do the Saudis
Like, they're also
fund or
defunding
support Kushner and his
FBI
hedge funds or his
programs
real
to
estate
study
projects? How might they
white-collar
benefit economically
crime.
in the
I
region
wonder why
is a
that
central concern
is.
of some players within the Trump and the Saudi regimes. But beyond that, there are also these political, economic,
Yeah,
and
where
imperial
he's selling
alignments
Trump
that
Bibles
act in
that
sort of
were
parallel
made
with
in
those.
China,
Sometimes they're in
watches,
support of one another, and other times they're in tension of one another. But
just
I think
continuing the
what's not called into
grift.
question is the depth of the relationship between those places. And I'll say this: one thing that
Yeah,
I'm paying
it
close
is
enough
blatant.
attention. Oh, sorry.
lack of taste. Exactly. This is what I mean. It's like fascists in the past actually like understood that like the optics of like at least appearing to have taste was for their benefit. And they just don't even care. They just don't even care. Like how we had like Hugo Boss and Coco Chanel and like Prada, like all of these brands that were Nazi sympathizers or like directly involved with design for Nazis, that it's like they understand, it's like they can be as like sloppy and gross and have the poorest taste, and that they still have this like legitimacy essentially because they are in the halls of power.
Well, again, there's a lot of information that we don't know about the region. We've seen some evidence from satellite imagery of oil spills in the Gulf as a result of various attacks at various points earlier in the war.
He must have gold nip piercings. Yeah. I mean, if he had nipple piercings, I almost would like, I wouldn't respect him at all. I would maybe just be like, oh, I maybe gain a teeny bit more. Not like it would even amount to anything substantial.
To destroy communities, to evoke and commit environmental atrocity in order to make the region uninhabitable, or at least precarious for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. We saw this with strikes on oil facilities in Tehran in the early stages of the war, on other infrastructure facilities.
Yeah, it just really goes to show like you can't buy taste.
And sort of
like having money allows you to have like the option to explore taste, because oppression means lack of choices.
Well, we want to thank you for being with
us. But they have to
Professor
keep exploiting us
Toby
because
Jones,
they're
professor
deeply
at Rutgers
untalented
University in New
and
Brunswick,
have poor
we'll be back
taste.
after a brief break.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe.
Like, do you see like how a lot of these like billionaires and oligarchs, they have like bunkers, and on the inside it's like cement or like all white and like minimalistic, because it's like, oh, we are now making it a class thing to like not have possessions around. Like, okay, so you're making it like you're cosplaying poverty, essentially. It's now fashionable to you because it's so out of reach. All right. Just looking at the time. Some of these things I think I'll go over tomorrow. Just choosing one of these. Okay, this was the thing that I mentioned that had to do with Citizens United, that Supreme Court case that that made it so it was legal to essentially have money be your vote, giving corporations and private donors, super PACs, enormous power. Maybe they strip all the gold and silk curtains before the photos. Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, they're destroying the world. They're like ripping apart families and like the fabric of society, environments, cultures, with all of their imposed like white supremacist Christian nationalism and imperialism. And what do we get? We get like shitty taste. It's like, at least in the past, like with other empires, whoops, they hired like artists to do stuff. That's not to condone what they did, but they at least had like the self-awareness to be like, oh, we need to, like, I'm gonna get the best artist to like paint the ceiling and do all of this gold filigree everywhere. And it's like, no, now we have like fake gold shit in the president's office, the Oval Office, this like ballroom, and it's gonna be so fucking ugly. So like, not only is it gonna cost like around $200 million, which could pay for a lot. I read somewhere that like $200 million would equal the cancellation of $2 billion of medical debt, because of how medical debt accrues interest. So there we go. Not a fan. Like, half monuments on America are just stripped away from Greece. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's also like colonizer shit, where there is no sense of originality. It has to be stolen. You could do new stuff. Yeah, we could do new stuff if they like actually valued progress and originality and diversity. Yeah. And it's like, we don't need the White House could be more majestic, you're right. But also, like, we don't need it to be. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, they should be existing in similar conditions that like the average citizen or just person living in the US experiences. Well, I take off my like Trump the other day, I don't like, in columns of the White House. Yeah. He isn't even good at like pursuing evil plans. He's so stupid and incompetent and is just like a puppet for like all of these people around him that like what he cares about is poor interior design. He's a closet case, if we've seen any, like many in this fascist regime. Interesting how all these closet cases are determined to essentially make being queer illegal, a crime, and yet, who do they call on the weekends? Who are in their contacts? Hi. Well, been a brick. It's a part of his success. Yeah, just being dumb. Just being dumb. Where it also shows like how dumb the American populace is. I continue to say this, but the world, I think, really underestimates how dumb a lot of Americans are. Like, intentionally ignorant. That's been ensured by this imperialist system, especially in the conservative strongholds where they have defunded schools and systematized Christian nationalism, essentially. Bricks like bricks. I have an acquaintance in Discord that likes Trump, and he's like, if I would be a politician, I'll steal so much. Oh my God. Yeah, it's the people who want to feel validated in their selfishness and cruelty and bigotry, especially when it comes to the older generations in particular, where they're like, oh, he says things like it is, because he says slurs and he says, like, he assaults women, where they're like, oh, I like this, because they are retrograde in their beliefs and like don't believe in any sort of like equality. I mean, that's a sweeping generalization of a whole generation, but many of them are like that. But yeah, it's because they see him get away with all this shit and they view it as aspirational, where this whole like American propaganda of like American exceptionalism of like pull yourself up by your bootstraps bullshit is like, oh, it's just like me out for myself and just try to get away with what I can because then I'll become a billionaire. And the propaganda is so deep that people relate to that way more than people who are displaced from their homes and are homeless when they're way closer to that situation. First time Trump won, lost 90% hope in America. Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why, like, this sentiment about, like, Americans is just plummeting throughout the world. It's for a reason. It's like, and it's hard too, because, like, the world is watching us and, like, why aren't you having a revolution? Like, what's going on? And then understanding, like, how fractured the media landscape is, like, how all of these oligarchs have bought up these media platforms and control the algorithms and have co-opted, like, and bought up all of these businesses. So essentially we're just like living in one conglomerate where they control everything and they control our jobs. And so we just have to keep running on this hamster wheel of capitalism. So reality is that all my acquaintances on Discord games and stuff that like Trump, most of them have been disappeared from Discord. Oh, interesting. Or if they're around, they're just stoned or think they're struggling with their life choices. Interesting. Like the 3 times woman. That is interesting. I mean, he is hemorrhaging support. A lot of people won't admit it, and that's a huge problem. Because they are like, oh, the ship is sinking. Well, like, I'll go down with it. It's like better than like admitting you were wrong and helping people who are being killed in so many different ways, like domestically and foreign, by all of these fascist policies. It's really bleak. It's really bleak. Which is why, you know, I try to mix up some of the news with some positive stuff. But it also has to do with the US being a huge landmass where there are lots of rural areas that we aren't like in close proximity to one another, and other states where like other states can feel like different countries, especially with how different their laws can be. And how I was saying, like these conservative strongholds where like they are the ones that dictate what kind of education people are getting, if they actually have access to education, that they have an incentive for criminalizing poverty for their for-profit prisons that are overrepresented in southern states and conservative states, that it's like, oh, I wonder, it's all because of serving capitalism. One of them was like, well, I guess we now own Venezuela or whatever. Ew. Gross. Yeah, people getting off on the cruelty. And one of the reasons why it's been able to build to this degree is like the reasons that I was explaining of like disenfranchising people, like making it so that people have a harder time voting and, you know, cutting people off from having more opportunity, just ripping apart any sort of semblance of a social safety net, having more institutionalized bigotry so that they can keep oppressing people. But it also has to do with American imperialism not having a backlash that returns to US soil, where people feel like high and mighty, or they're like, oh, look, we're bombing places. Look at us. We're so cool. America. And they wouldn't be saying that if they knew that bombs would be coming their way. If like their family members, I mean, even Americans don't really care about their family members. Many people don't. Yeah. But they would be afraid for their own safety. And so feeling like there aren't repercussions has allowed people to be just endlessly bloodthirsty. And we also have this enormous propaganda machine when it comes to the military and the telling of history, of lionizing all of this violence when it comes to the US instead of being honest about US imperialism and violence. Yeah. We own Venezuela. Jesus. People really don't have any shame. Well, I mean, maybe starting to develop it if you haven't heard from him since. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes to root out fascism, is to like have a very strong stance and say like, no, you can't cross this line. Like, that's not funny. Why would you make that joke? There is a very great big use that is helpful to maybe it's not even deprogramming, but at least to stop people from being more outspoken and pursuing more like fascistic ideals and actions when there is social shaming involved. Many Americans are learning now that Trump getting rich means the direct opposite for them. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the time, Americans just don't even care. It's like you have people who care about politics, like who are like invested and are like, I don't like this, like the captured minds of his cult. But also, like, because of capitalism, people are just so worried about working constantly and paying the bills that they don't have time to pay attention to politics, or just feel so disempowered over so much time that they're like, yeah, what good will it do? What kind of power do we actually have? That kind of dialogue he used about making the country rich would only work if you had nationalized industries or were a bigger socialism. Yeah, exactly. And then Americans aren't smart enough, especially like his crowd, aren't smart enough to realize that. And that is a direct result because of lack of education, where like even the word socialism is viewed as like this demonic thing when it's like, I think we were talking about this yesterday, how it's like standard for most of the world. And that's not an accident that it's happening at the heart of empire. I was reading about this the other day where like, especially near the end of empires, the fall of empires, that some of like the worst conditions that people experience will start to mirror the violence that the empire has been creating around the world as it comes back, the imperial boomerang. But that once people, once the empire does fall, that the working class actually grows, like physically gets taller because they aren't as oppressed. And me being 5'3", I'm like, well, can this happen soon? For many reasons. Yeah, it's a shit show. But it is important to have things to look forward to, like some positive things to grasp. Like, I really don't know how we get out of this bullshit unless it's like a national strike and we don't stop all of this, like a global violence, unless we have a global strike. Okay. I'm just glad a lot of right parties here in Europe are getting backlash from being aligned with Trump in the past. Yeah, exactly. We're starting to see some of those repercussions. And I mean, of course, nothing's happening to them here, although they're tanking in favorability and their popularity. But we see, like, as you mentioned before, like, it doesn't matter how little support that they have. Like, they're doing things out in the open, that they're so insulated by the levers of power that they have at their disposal and the money because of capitalism and oligarchy, that, and just corruption. I guess that's all the same thing. Where it's like they don't even need public support anymore to continue their fascist endeavors. But we are seeing some fallout. And it's good for the US to have repercussions for this kind of violence and aggression and just like nasty, gross, immoral behavior, because like it has to be stopped. And like Americans feel so disempowered that there is very little interest in stopping it. Although, like I have mentioned, like people are organizing more than I have ever seen in my lifetime, at least. And that is because people are pissed. People are very angry. And people can feel like they don't even know what to do because of how little we actually have options for getting power back. Which is why they tried to do all of this union busting. Okay, so speaking of corruption, this is a bill in Hawaii where they are trying to take down Citizens United. This is a good thing because we need this to happen, and this is really the first attempt, first of its kind in the nation, to actually address it. Hope you can start turning that around, following the democratic ways. Yeah, exactly. It's like, if things don't change soon with like organizing, we're reading the Scarlet Pimpernel for literature story time, and I like to talk about how like there are very similar circumstances to the conditions of the French Revolution and what the material conditions are that people are experiencing here. Hello, Night and Love. Welcome. There's a tenant union in my city against ludicrous rent pricings. That is great. Yay! I saw that. I saw that on leftist positive news. I'll show that tomorrow. That is really great, especially with it being citywide, from what I understand. Yeah, go grassroots movements. And I'm sure that was really hard to get. Like, there was a lot of fighting that it took and organizing that it took to get there. But yeah, that is huge. I love that. And it's good for people all around the world to see, but especially for like people in the US to understand that that's even a possibility. Grab some ravioli. Oh, delicious. That sounds wonderful. Okay, let's get into this Citizens United update, because, Hawaii has been colonized over and over and over again, just continually. And so it is good to see some pushback against this fascist imperialist system.
Hawaii could become the first state to limit corporate influence in elections. A Senate bill is headed to final vote at the Capitol this week. Supporters say it could reshape how campaigns are funded, but critics warn it could face major legal challenges. Nikki Shenfield reports.
For 16 years, the U.S. Supreme Court's Citizens United decision has allowed corporations and organizations to spend unlimited money on political campaigns. Hawaii lawmakers are trying to challenge that by redefining what corporations are allowed to do. Senate Bill 2471 would classify corporations as artificial persons created by the state and make clear that they do not have the power to spend money to influence elections.
So what the Citizens United case said was that corporations get the same rights that people do,
you have
which
more to study than expected.
doesn't
That's
make
all right.
sense. If
Thanks for being
corporations
here.
are
It was good
creations
seeing
of
you,
state law,
Night.
then they shouldn't get the same human rights that are protected in the Constitution. If this passes, it will be the first piece of legislation like this in the country.
Yes.
And I'm really proud that Hawaii is positioned to lead the way on overturning this really bad decision that has corrupted our democracy for the last 16 years.
Yeah.
Individuals like you can give a certain amount of money to a campaign, but
People
there is
who
a limit
understand
on how much
what
and how
colonization
often
is
you can
fighting
give.
back.
For corporations, because they represent so many people, they are able to give far much more money than one person can.
Yeah. Advocates say the goal is to crack down on what they call dark money.
Where it seems like when one person
I love that they're calling
opposes one
corporations
group's interests,
artificial persons.
they are forced out.
There's
And
so
money,
much power
significant
in
amount of money is
accurately
thrown to
naming
people
things.
who support that group's interests, and then they are put in positions of power.
But opponents, including the state attorney general's office, warn that the bill may violate the Constitution and argue that Citizens United is still the law of the land and political spending is protected speech.
There's always some concern about the new, right?
Yeah.
But the fact is, for the last 16 years, our system has been corrupted by unlimited spending by corporations who are given tremendous benefits under Hawaii state law for taking corporate form. And it's time for us to redefine that.
At least a dozen other states have introduced similar legislation. If it passes final vote next week, it heads to Governor Green's desk. If signed into law, the measure would take effect in 2027. Nikki Schenfeld, KHON2 News, working for Hawaii.
Okay, so that's some good news. Something to hold on to. Okay, I'm gonna show this just so that we can get to some local news. So they are building a data center in Utah, and naturally, people are incensed. They're enraged, very upset. All of the synonyms about what's happening, because not only do these data centers take up an inordinate amount of energy and water, which water already is scarce, the legislators have no interest in preserving the Great Salt Lake because they're bought and sold by corporations who are using the water for their own immoral means, because capitalism. And we have seen a huge temperature rise. In my lifetime, we have seen the environment and climate drastically change. Where growing up, like I'm 31, growing up when we would go trick-or-treating, so like in Halloween, in October, on Halloween, there would be snow. And we would get huge snowstorms. Like, learning how to drive in the snow was necessary when you were younger. Like, it was scary to drive with someone who didn't know how to drive in the snow. And now we barely get any snow that actually sticks, like, for more than an afternoon. And that has a direct correlation to corporate greed and pollution. I'm going to start using that in my journal prompts. I understood nothing there. Oh, in my lifetime, increases. Yeah. Fuck capitalism. Exactly. It's wild to see. And also, like, for even people like my parents to understand that we don't get snow anymore, but somehow not connect it to capitalism or corporate greed. They're just like, oh yeah, the earth changes. It's not climate change. Because they don't care about future generations. But anyway, the people of Utah are very upset. It's in Box Elder County, but it's going to affect the entire state. I mentioned this yesterday on the stream, and I think on a different stream as well, where it will use up twice the amount of energy that Utah uses now in a year. And we are going to have to foot the bill. It is by, what is his name? This Shark Tank asshole, Kevin O'Leary. And they are like technically holding like, oh, you can give like your like public comment or something. They have it like very short, and then they don't listen to anybody and then continue on with the building of everything. So we see all of these people in the county and the city that it's going to be built. People are very upset, but like statewide, people are pissed off because we understand what the implications are. It's going to make things way more expensive. It's going to pollute everything. We aren't going to have any more water, essentially. It's going to make it so there are even less jobs for people to have. So I wanted to show a little bit of the rage and the bullshit that we're dealing with here in Utah. Get a little bit of local coverage. Commissioners walk out, vote yes on massive data center. Yeah, so they all voted yes for the data center, and all of these people showed up from around the state to oppose this.
I just want to start off by saying there is no one on this commission or any other county elected official that is going to benefit from this project financially or otherwise. This project is designed.
Do you hear that? Utah is not known for being rowdy, like having rowdy crowds. Rowdy, meaning like vocally expressing disagreement. That's not very much a Utah thing. People are mad.
Will future generations be glad for the decision made today?
Nope.
After taking this much time, I believe
Do you hear the rage?
The best interest in mind.
Happening right now, there's a meeting going on in Box Elder County, drawing a lot of residents there as they had to move to a larger venue just to host this meeting.
Many residents are concerned about a data center being built in the northeast side of Box Elder County. Kristen McPeak is live, joining us on the live desk as that meeting is getting underway. Kristen.
Yeah, so residents, they've raised concerns about the cost, the emissions, wildlife, and water use. That meeting has not started yet, but we are getting a live look as they prepare to start it. I did see some video and pictures of that meeting. It's packed in there. And before that meeting, hundreds of people were outside voicing their opinions. This is a look right there now. You can see everyone there holding up those signs. And like I said, it's packed. They had to move this to the fairgrounds to fit all those people. The proposed data center is planned to spread 62 square miles. Governor Cox says that this is not going near any homes. But as you can see, people there still pretty concerned and wanting to know more. Back to you.
All right, Kristen, thank you very much. Utah is already home to a large NSA data center in Bluffdale. Other cities have either approved a data center or are considering them. That list includes Santa Quin, Cedar City, Provo, Eagle Mountain, and the one that was mentioned in Box Elder County.
Yeah, we have some breaking news right now. Those commissioners have left the podium. I am following our reporter's tweets. Natalie Wada, she's at that meeting now, and after lots of chanting and booing and yelling, the commissioners left, and now the meeting has gone private. So this is a live look right now. Let's see if we can hear anything.
Yeah,
so this was actually supposed to be held in a smaller venue. They upgraded that venue. Hundreds of people turned up there, and they are raising concerns about cost, emissions, and wildlife and water use there after that data center is being proposed to go into Box Elder County. Once again, commissioners have left the podium and have gone to a private meeting.
For hell's sakes, grow up.
Right now, Box Elder County commissioners are meeting to vote on a proposed data center in a contentious meeting that has now moved to a virtual meeting for those that were previously in attendance. Thanks for joining us tonight on 2 News at 5. I'm Brian Cheney.
And I'm Heidi Hatch. Glad you're with us. This crowd was so loud that the commissioners left the room. We want to get to Kristen McPeak at the live desk, who's been listening into this meeting that's now in a quiet, smaller space.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd is still there, Heidi, and we actually have a live look at what's going on. We can see that the commissioners are meeting in a private space, and that is being broadcasted to that crowd of hundreds of people at the fairgrounds there. Let's take a listen.
I just echo what the other two commissioners have said and what I said before we, as the meeting got going. Just like Northrop Grumman, the farmers will be able to lease the ground back to farm on, just like Northrop Grumman. One of the things that we as a commission have been pushing for the last year and a half is to get our county zone. After we get our property zone,
they're nervous,
we protect
rightly so.
Our county. And we need to realize and remember that everybody has property rights and that they can do what they would like to do with their property.
And you can even hear people there. They seem to be cheering on in the crowd or raising their vocal comments. You can see there is a police presence there in that room, and there is also a large police presence in that building. Once again, this is being held at the fairgrounds. We'll follow this throughout the shows and give you all the latest updates.
Kristen, thank you. That massive proposed data center project in Box Elder County drawing attention largely because of the sheer size of this project.
Christian Sita joining us live tonight with more. Christian.
Now, Brian, Heidi, now, even though the project is proposed 70 miles away, residents here in Salt Lake County say that those impacts could potentially be felt far beyond that area.
Yep.
A proposed data center development in Box Elder County would span roughly 40,000 acres. That's a number that's hard to picture.
With the size that it's going to be taking up all that land, I don't think that that's a wise investment.
For many people,
that
the
should
scale
be
of this
given back
project
to
stands out.
native
40,000
tribes.
acres, roughly 62 square miles that stretch along the Salt Lake Valley, starting here in downtown Salt Lake. That's the mid-size of several Utah cities. St. George is 64 square miles, almost exactly the same size as 40,000 acres. Other cities close in comparison, Layton 63 square miles, Lehigh 48 square miles, 40,000 acres is slightly bigger, and Orem 19 square miles, that's 3 times larger. It also translates to roughly 30,000 football fields. For some, the size alone raises concerns about resources.
My understanding is that these data centers are going to intake a ton of water, and if that's the case, that is not going to help us here at all.
Megan believes the impact wouldn't stop at Box Elder County.
It affects everybody. It wouldn't matter if you had it like in the middle of nowhere. It's all connected.
Megan adds that the issue is a shared responsibility.
As a community and as a state, we should be thinking about each other.
Now, there are 43 data centers located here in Utah, with most of them here in Salt Lake County. In Salt Lake City, Christian Sita, KUTV 2 News.
Christian, thank you. There are more than 3,000 operational data centers in the United States right now. 38% of Americans live within 5 miles of at least one operational data center currently. These structures tend to be in clusters. 9 in 10 data centers are within 5 miles of another one. Virginia and Texas have the most operating data centers. More than 1,500 new data centers are in various stages of development nationwide, including here in Utah. Welcome back. We continue following breaking news. The vote has just happened in Box Elder County with the 3 commissioners, which have unanimously approved that data center, the Mega Strato Center.
Let's listen into the news conference taking place right now.
It starts over the next about 60 days.
Fuck you all.
How much?
Fuck you.
Well,
not you.
The entire project is a significant project, a $1 billion project. There'll be phases to that capital raising effort.
When do we expect to see the first phase?
The first phase will start in the next few months.
There was massive opposition out there. We all saw and heard it. Given that, one, were you
yeah,
expecting
they ran away
the community,
like the
two,
cowards
what
they
would you have to
are.
say to those folks out there now that are very upset?
Well, I would say that I saw a lot of my community members that were more upset by people from not in this community, that we're not allowing them to listen and absorb the information that we're trying to share with them.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, there's going to be some in our community that were not happy with the decision we made today, but there are also members of our community that are going to be very pleased by the decision we made today. And that's the process that we have to do as
you bitch.
What about all citizens? What about all citizens of Utah where you might have, I mean, people came here from all over, from Salt Lake, Ogden, everywhere, who are all very upset about, water usage, especially going to the Great Salt Lake.
Hello.
And taking that out. Would this still affect everybody here, or just because it's your community, do you still feel like you're responsible for a decision that will affect all Utahns?
Our vote today had nothing to do with water or air quality.
Yeah,
Again, those
clearly.
are not issues that the county
We can
has any
see.
control over. Those are state-run parks, and as you heard today from the professionals, those water rights are owned by individuals. Again, I don't have any control. I can't be the king and tell them they can't use their water for what they want to use it for. So the water issue, it's up to the private
People who
landowners
are
to
owning the
what they
data
do with it.
centers.
And as far as air quality and water values, et cetera, that deals with the state of Utah and their part in DEQ and dealing with that, which we heard from our county attorney's office explaining today. Today, our Box Elder County Commission voted to approve consent for the Military Installation Development Authority, or MIDA, to move forward with the proposed Stratus project area in western Box Elder County. This has not been a simple decision. Over the past several weeks, we have taken time to do our due diligence, meet with stakeholders, and most importantly, gather input from our community. We did so transparently by creating a project information page on the county website. We opened a public feedback forum, and we carefully reviewed more than 2,500 comments. Those comments reflected a wide range of perspectives, some supporting and others opposing the project. We considered all of them in our decision-making process. And I want to make it clear today, today's vote is not the end of the process, it is the beginning.
Yeah, and that's the problem. These people have no shame. And they really don't like, they're used to being able to just get away with shit. They really don't like being confronted. Do you see how all red their faces are? How sweaty they are? Because guess what? They had to run from the place because they were too cowardly to actually stand up to what's happening. Them trying to claim that there are community members that are upset that, like, oh, people from around here, people aren't part of this community are here. Yeah, because it affects the whole state. And we care about the environment and the people who live here, unlike these idiots. 43 data centers. Yeah, it's late stage capitalism. Okay, this is Governor Caillou Cox. I hate this man. He used to technically be my boss. And he did not like me because I would ask very direct questions during, like, the one time a month he would have, like, employee meetings where they would selectively get questions beforehand because they were getting too many questions that they didn't like. So he is a coward. He is corrupt. He has an alfalfa farm that takes up an inordinate amount of water. He refuses to change the crop, even though it's not as financially viable. And to crops that use way less water. He is deeply capitalist, intent on pursuing more of this ingratiation of Mormonism within the government. So he tries to look like he is like, oh, I'm just like a church-going little boy. No, you are doing evil shit. So he's mad, and I like to see
I'm so tired of our country taking years to get stuff done. It's the dumbest thing ever. We think that taking time makes things better or safer. It absolutely does not. You get a chance to give your feedback, and then decisions get made. That's how we have to do stuff in this country and in this state. People have a chance. We're hearing from them. They're hearing from them. Again, I don't get to make this decision, but the decision makers will take into account.
But you have to approve stuff, bitch. You have to approve stuff. And he already has approved all of the plans for things. What work did you do for him, if not FBI? So I worked for the state health department. I came from the world of like digital marketing, but also substance use disorders and recovery. And I was like, maybe I can change things from the inside, which is an extremely naive thing. But I worked in the tobacco prevention and control program because there's a lot of social justice work there, where we have like big tobacco further marginalizing people. I mean, the government does as well. But so yeah, what I wanted to do was mostly get out like free resources that help people with the recovery process that are available in the state that many people don't know about. And it also, when you quit nicotine products in conjunction with other substances, it drastically increases people's chances of abstinence long term. So that was the perspective I came from. But as you can imagine, working for a place like that, you have people who are similar to me, where they're like, oh, you want to change things. And then most people are there because they like the system, they like how it functions, and they want to be part of it. Were you frenemies with vapes? Yeah. Yeah. Especially with like vape flavors and stuff, like the rise in like youth vaping, especially. So like some of the most extensive tobacco laws and like restrictions actually when it comes to like how corporates can market to youth, they're probably the most in Utah in the country. They were so appealing and easily accessible to youth as a plushie market. Yeah, exactly. And there was like one time, like there were these like students that came to the Capitol. I like gave a presentation. I didn't work at the Capitol, but they were like learning about advocacy, and they were actively there trying to advocate for flavor bans. And so I did like an education piece of like, this is how it affects your brain. It's not a moral issue, because that's a huge thing in Utah, where there's like something called the word of wisdom in Mormonism that says like no tobacco use. It also says don't drink coffee, don't have alcohol. So that's a little insight. It's just all arbitrary. But that one of the reasons that I want to do more education, especially for youth, of like talking about what the dangers are, just so that people can be informed, because there was so much misinformation and disinformation that was spread by these companies that sell vapes. So yeah, it's like I also recognize that the government was part of the problem, which is why I would circumvent certain processes to actually get shit done in an ethical manner. So I'll leave it at that. But dealing with all of the bureaucracy, people who are just incredibly resistant to change, like asking these like boomer, like white cishet men to actually do their jobs when they're getting paid like twice as much as I did. It was like I was asking them to like give up their firstborn child, and they probably would prefer that than give up their salary. Honestly. So yeah, that's kind of the lay of the land. But he instituted someone who is in charge of the health department. Her name is Tracy Gruber. He encouraged legislators to change the Utah code to make it so that the health department director didn't have to be a doctor or have any sort of medical background. So guess what her background is in? Criminal justice. So you can imagine how that affected decisions. It was not based off of any sort of medical knowledge or health, that they were trying to make as much money as possible, and the people who they viewed as being like friends in the legislature. So he's part of the problem. He's also the person, like, that one place that I was calling about the homeless campus that they were planning on building. That still isn't off the table, by the way. They're still acquiring the land for that. That the media person there, who like was very unprepared for any sort of like serious questions, which goes to show how unqualified a lot of people are, especially when they're in like these senior positions, that he kept saying like, this comes from the governor's office. We just do what the governor's office says. And I'm like, well, aren't you the people who have expertise? Shouldn't you be informing him what to do? And then that made him very upset. He's like, it sounds like you don't trust the governor. And I'm like, no, I don't, because I used to work for the state and I know that he doesn't actually get our advice a lot of the time, let alone listen to it. So there's that. Very dedicated use of their mantle. Yep.
The feedback that they receive, and then they'll make a decision, and then we move forward. We've let
he's actually getting pushback. That's why he's so agitated.
People against virtually everything destroy our country, destroy our industrial base, destroy our mining base, destroy our housing base, because we can't build anything in this country anymore. And those days are over. We're done with that. We take feedback. We understand what people want. We say no to many things because there is good feedback, but we can't say no to everything. And this is in a place where it's built for something like this. If you go out there, it's not next to somebody's house where people are going to get angry because it's in their neighborhood. It's right next to
Earth isn't built for
natural
this
gas
shit.
pipeline, so they can build their own energy. It's not going to.
Do you see this like smile thing that he does? That it's so infuriating.
I mean, it's just I don't know, if you can't put this here, then we can't put them anywhere. And that's part of the frustration that I think people are feeling. I'm so tired.
Then they shouldn't be put anywhere. That's the whole point, shithead flaccid cocks. Okay, I'm just getting angry, but for a good reason. Yeah, everyone in the comments are saying no. Rushing things is what criminals do. He's selling us out to big tech billionaires with what a complete loser. Yeah. He's made up his mind and our concerns will not be heard. Typical. Yeah, exactly. We're so fucked. We're so fucked in Utah. We're so fucked as a nation. It's not looking good for the globe with how things are going. It's hard to maintain optimism in this moment. But we'll get to some more positive things before we end and get to the reading, because I need that. So, just to continue with this is the person who is building the data center. Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary defends Utah data center project amid backlash. Nothing lasts forever. Yeah, I mean, it is a result of, like, we're seeing the empire falling, and it's falling for this reason. I mean, among many other things, but just, like, rampant, unchecked corporate greed and leaders, air quotes, who are completely corrupt, bought and sold by private interests, corporate interests. So, yeah, but it just sucks that things have to get worse before they get better. And, you know, people are already upset about what's happening, but I think, like, Utah, it is moving more, it's moving more to the left. It still is extremely right-wing. And so people are having to go through, like, the centrist phase, the liberal phase, getting to, like, even being somewhat okay in talking about unions. Like, that's how far we have to go with organizing in a lot of places. that like by the time it takes us to organize and stuff, that there's just like so much education and shit that needs to be done, which is hopefully what I'm trying to do here. But, you know, it's a full-scale thing that needs to be addressed in so many different ways. But I mean, the good thing is that people are voicing their concerns, and that even people who seem more centrist in many ways, or like not interested in politics, are being forced to engage.
The lead investor in this data center, Kevin O'Leary, is responding to environmental concerns. In a social media post, O'Leary says sustainability is at the core of the project.
Okay, let's refresh this. Sustaining your capital.
And the lead investor in this data center, Kevin O'Leary, is responding to environmental concerns. In a social media post, O'Leary says sustainability is at the core of the project. He also says advancing technology will play a key role in how the data center is powered.
And so we search for the best technology. There's many air-cooled turbines now. So you're blending in air-cooled versus water.
Where are you, dude?
There's so many different ways to generate power.
You're in a car inside somewhere?
We can also put a percentage of the power generation to solar, wind, and batteries, because the battery technology is 10x more efficient.
The fact that he can't even like look into the camera, him blinking a lot. This is also the like shittily dressed billionaire costume that they all wear. The uniform of wearing like a black hoodie and a black shirt, where they're like allowed to like not dress well. It's like a flex of their status. Where the fuck is he?
Than it was just 5 years ago.
O'Leary also going on to claim that the majority of people protesting the data center do not live in Utah or Box Elder County.
What?
We also spoke with
That's
the Utah
not even
Department
true.
of Natural Resources about the effects.
That's not even true. That people live in Utah, and that even if they don't live in Box Elder County, that people are very upset because it will affect them. Because we actually understand how the world works. I think y'all need just a proactive attitude of changing stuff and demand basic social rights. Regular people not affected by the fall of the empire, and all empires fall. America is a big country with many resources, so if people just stop thinking that America can just buy anything from the rest of the world and center a bit more on internal sustainability. Also, one can always just go to plant some potatoes and have a calm living. I mean, that is true. It is tough, though, with like the stage that we are in, that like regular people like will be affected by the fall of empire, or like already are, like as we see with like these violent ways that they're enforcing immigration, because it's not about immigration, it's about ethnic cleansing, and like pricing people out of homes, like homelessness rising, it's like poverty increasing, that's a form of violence. And how, yeah, it's like we do have some avenues for recourse, but galvanizing people is difficult. Demanding social rights. Yeah. Especially in Utah, it's basically like the 1950s. They're trying to make it like the 1840s. Also building some damn public transport. I know, exactly. Our infrastructure is shit. Yeah, in Utah, we have a long way to go with social rights, human rights, even. Like as a trans person in the state, like we have bathroom bills where like I was subject to these laws that they were like, okay, on public, like government property, trans people can't use a bathroom. Or if you see someone going in the wrong bathroom, whatever their perception is of you at the time, then they had a tip line to report people. And then there were like criminal charges that they could file against you and fees. So we see in Utah, like it's been one of the first places where these trans bills have been passed. And it's an extremely queer-phobic state because it's ingratiated in the predominant religion. So it's not even just a matter of like convincing people that we need to have more rights, that it helps everyone. It's a matter of like deprogramming certain things within this cult-like mindset, because that is what it is. Which is why there are so many people here who are Trump loyalists, because they're already in a cult and are much more easily going to join another cult. In England, for example, it's completely legal to squat on abandoned buildings. Yeah. Yeah. It's like also Utah has had a housing crisis for a very long time. It has to be done, and luckily we have more progressive people that are running for office, but also we can't only wait on electoral politics. Like, other organizing has to be done. And it just is a lot of work and takes a lot of time. The domino effect that comes from the 50s mentality of the American dream. Yeah, and especially in Utah because of squatting, for example, is demonized. Yeah. Like, especially in Utah where like before the phenomenon of like trad wives came about, of like traditional like conservative wives, that's essentially what was already happening in Utah for years and years, where it's like institutionalized and in the predominant religion like encouraged for women to only get an education for in case like they don't have a husband or their husband dies, and that it is like viewed as like the most righteous thing that they can do to have kids and stay at home raising them rather than being out in society. So that is very 50s. And they're also like one of the biggest like disenfranchisement bills that was passed was affecting, you know, of course, trans people, of saying like, you need to have this identification, your name has to be the same as your birth certificate. That also is disenfranchising so many women, but they don't care about the women in their lives. They care about patriarchy. So I know that's like a cynical take, but also having lived here and experienced it, that's the reality. But like, again, it is a good thing that people are actually waking up to a lot of this, especially people who would not normally be involved in politics. That is a good thing.
The data center could have on the region. The DNR insists, despite its projected water use, maintaining and restoring the Great Salt Lake remains a top priority.
A lot of violence, yeah,
and we want to make sure
exactly.
that we're doing everything appropriately to ensure the Great Salt Lake is getting the water it needs over the long term to stay healthy.
As we continue to learn more about the impacts this new data center will have on the Beehive States, stick with us right here on ABC4 for the latest updates.
Yeah. And I mean, like, also these other things, like, this is why I talk about how, like, Utah is, like, flies under the radar for this Christian nationalism, because so many beliefs in the Mormon Church, the LDS Church, are instituted into policy. Like, for example, like, trans people are not allowed to get baptized in the church, like become a member and actually receive like salvation, saving ordinances. And that is one of the reasons why there are these anti-trans bills that like started in Utah. Yeah, so like the sexism that's involved, racism, especially like Black people were not allowed to get the priesthood, Black men, because women are not allowed to get the priesthood, which is the power of God on earth that they believe, until like the mid-70s. And that made a lot of people leave the church because they were upset about it. The religion is blatantly white supremacist. Like, my dad is brown, and like he has a darker complexion than I do, and he genuinely believes that if he lives a righteous life and gets to heaven, that his skin will turn white, and that is a sign of righteousness. So it's really deep in there. Just a lot of deprogramming that people have to do. And unfortunately, like having grown up in that, people don't care unless they feel personally affected. Then they start to break down some things, but like even then, sometimes it's not enough for them to like drastically change their mindset. Because when I was in politics, for example, I spent a lot of money just to maintain an open office where people could get advice on squatting and how to make paperwork so the police couldn't throw them out, like in 5 years at least. Whoa, that's cool. Local administrations don't build enough social building fast enough. You have to give an alternative. Yeah, exactly. Which is why, like, grassroots organizing, community organizing, mutual aid has really taken off within this fascist regime. Even before that, because we're still living under fascism, just fascist light. This is fascist double stuffed. I don't know. Yeah. It's where like we have to take care of our own, and people are. It just is unfortunate that like so many people have to be hurting, and that like people have to then take the time out of like their own lives. And I mean, like, community building is good and stuff, but yeah, that like the burden is always on us, but that is what it takes. The capitalization of religion that exists in America is quite scandalous too. Yeah, which like the Mormon church also believes like you aren't counted as worthy to go to the temple, which is like where you get ordinances to gain salvation, that you can't go through there unless you are paying 10% of your income to the church, which they call tithing. And the church then invests it in the stock market and buys up tons of land. So like when we're talking about land back principles and returning it to native people and tribes, that like the state government and the Mormon church are the biggest offenders in buying up tons and tons of land and just letting it appreciate over time, and then using it as a way to have equity and make money, and then also just like invest in the stock market. It's not great. But I did want to show something that was more positive that's happening. So this is a channel created by Native people called Done Easily by Native Wisdoms. And they feature elders passing on wisdom, which is a wonderful way to decolonize and maintain collective memory and history and honor oral traditions as well. So I wanted to give this a watch. It says, Native American wisdom for difficult times. This will help you stay strong. So the audience is primarily for other Native people, but it also is just really great pieces of wisdom here. General obsession with money is part of the problem. Yeah, which is capitalism, you know? Money is so boring. I mean, money is like disgusting and gross. It's dirty, but also like it doesn't make you interesting. It doesn't make you talented. It is not fun to talk about or think about. Yeah, late stage capitalism and all. The rest of the world is 90% capitalist. Yeah, exactly. We have global capitalism. And, you know, it didn't start with the US empire. It is an exporter. The US is an exporter of capitalism in a lot of ways. So, and enforces it through imperialist means. So we have a lot of work to do, which is why we talk about our struggle being collective. It's not just about what's happening in the US or what's happening in Utah, that all around the world, like, we are subject to exploitation and oppression, and that a lot of the people who are in charge of all of these policies and violence that are happening here are happening, like, they're choosing and literally invested in the oppression and exploitation that's happening other places. You can live under capitalism, but just be happy taking beers on the terrace of a bar and not owning a Ferrari. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a certain class of people, and like for a while, that's how it was in the US. There were like some socialist policies instituted, like with the FDR administration, but I mean, it's still being capitalism. There were still populations that were more oppressed and exploited, like people who were Black or Latine or Indigenous or Irish or Italian even, that they were not allowed to participate or receive the benefits of these programs. So like on the surface, it was able to like sustain capitalism with this veneer of like, oh, we're doing all right, with like some slightly socialist policies. But yeah, in capitalism, someone is always getting exploited because it inherently is a cannibalistic, suicidal ideology and mechanism where people have to be exploited. It inherently creates these hierarchies of human dignity. And there has to be an exploited caste, because that's what it is, in order to have people be capitalists where they don't work, by definition. Okay, let's watch this, and then I think we'll get into the reading.
When everything feels uncertain, don't rush into fear. Stay calm first. When your mind is steady, you see clearer and make better choices.
Fear grows when you keep feeding it. Step back, breathe. What's real is often quieter than what your mind is telling you. In times like this, stay close to what matters. Your people, your values, your connection to the land. That's what keeps you steady. You don't need to carry every worry you hear. Choose what's yours. Let the rest pass, or it will weigh you down. When things feel overwhelming,
go
back to the ground. Sit, breathe, feel it. That's where you remember who you are.
In times of chaos, not everything needs your reaction. Some things pass on their own. Protect your energy and choose your response carefully.
You may not see what's ahead, and that's okay. Stay patient. The path reveals itself when you keep moving without panic.
When everything around you shifts, your balance must come from within. Keep your mind steady, your heart calm, and you won't be shaken easily. No matter what happens, the land still stands. It reminds us that not everything is as fragile as it feels. Even in hard times, you keep moving forward. Not fast, not perfect, just steady. That's how you get through what feels too heavy. Don't let fear make your decisions. When fear leads, you lose your way. Take a breath, then choose from a place that feels steady.
You don't need every answer right now.
It's okay not to know everything. Stay present. Take one step. The next part will reveal itself.
Everything feels urgent right now, but not everything truly is. Slow down your mind, and you'll see what actually needs your attention. When everything around you changes, stay rooted in who you are. That's what keeps you from getting lost in what you cannot control.
This moment feels heavy, but you are stronger than it. You've carried more before, and you're still standing. Don't forget that.
There is so much you cannot control. Don't let that overwhelm you. Focus on what you can do, and let the rest move on its own.
No moment lasts forever, not even this one. What feels overwhelming now will pass.
Yeah, it's
Stay
like what you
steady
were saying,
and let time do
Vixen.
its work. Yes.
When the world feels unstable, keep your spirit steady. That's where your strength comes from. Not outside, but from within you.
If this helped you feel steady, stay with us. Like and subscribe and come back again. We'll keep sharing what matters. Together, we carry this forward.
I needed that. Damn. Thank you, elders. Just looking at the comments. Oh. Yep, thank you, elders. Subscribing. I saw some other videos by this channel that's really great. Okay. How long is this? This is some more good news. There is a temporary restraining order granted protecting Pesla. Maybe I'll just read this and then save this for tomorrow, just so that we can give it the time it deserves. Today's federal court hearing resulted in a temporary restraining order being granted to plaintiffs in the ongoing lawsuit against the U.S. Forest Service, a move that bans drilling at sacred site Pesla for 14 days. Additionally, the injunction hearing is tentatively scheduled for May 20th to 21st, 2026. This is a huge win for the people, for tribal nations, and for all those who believe in clean water and protecting Mother Earth, said Wizapan Garriott, president of NDN Collective. This is a native-owned media outlet. We've successfully stopped drilling and ongoing harm for at least the next 2 weeks. This restraining order gives us an opportunity to prepare for the preliminary injunction hearing where the merits of the full case will be argued later this month. This is the first big step in this fight to protect Pesla and clean drinking water for all. As a mother and an auntie, this is a big win for future generations, the land and the water, said Valeria Big Eagle, director of HESAPA initiatives at NDN Collective. This victory would not be possible without all the support from the people, including our elders and spiritual leaders. This was a true community effort. To all those who supported the Pesla Protector Camp, if online or in person, we are so grateful for your support. This win would not have been possible without you. Very cool. Yeah, save sacred sites. Land back. Okay. With all of that, shall we slow things down a little bit? Change the pace? I mean, that last video, I think, definitely helped. There's a phrase that many Native people use in the US called Indian time. It's a reclaiming of the word where, like, once you are with family in spaces that are supportive of identity, that things slow down. and that you gain perspective. That it's not time that is dictated by capital, specifically. Okay, so shifting gears to story time, continuing with the Scarlet Pimpernel. Marguerite is talking to, is it Andrew? Yes, Andrew Folk, who is part of the Pimpernel's band. She found out that Sir Percy, her husband, is the Scarlet Pimpernel, and that she is trying to save him because the information that she gave Chauvelin would lead to his death. But in reality, they're trying to make it look like they are desperate and have no options or resources available when they are part of the ruling class. That these revolutionaries that they're talking about are described in animalistic terms when they are driven to certain tactics because of the desperation of their situation. Okay, so basically, in summary of what happened at the beginning of this chapter, she told Andrew Folk that, like, she knows everything, what the plan is, how he's going to be trapped, essentially. She had spoken quietly, dispassionately, and with firm, unbending resolution. Her purpose was to make that young man trust and help her, for she could do nothing without him. "I do not understand," he repeated, trying to gain time, to think what was best to be done. "Aye, but I think you do, Sir Andrew. You must know that I am speaking the truth. Look these facts straight in the face. Percy has sailed for Calais, I presume for some lonely part of the coast, and Chauvelin is on his track. He has posted for Dover, and will cross the Channel probably tonight. What do you think will happen?" The young man was silent. "Percy will arrive at his destination, unconscious of being followed. He will seek out Du Tournay and the others. Among these is Armand, Saint-Just, my brother. He will seek them out one after another, probably not knowing that the sharpest eyes in the world are watching his every movement. When he has thus unconsciously betrayed those who blindly trust in him, when nothing can be gained from him, and he is ready to come back to England, with those whom he has gone so bravely to save, the doors of the trap will close upon him, and he will be sent to end his noble life upon the guillotine." Still, Sir Andrew was silent. "You do not trust me," she said passionately. "Oh God, cannot you see that I am in deadly earnest? Man, she added, while with her tiny hands she seized the young man suddenly by the shoulders, forcing him to look straight at her. Again, the infantilization that happens consistently in this book of like, oh, she has such tiny feet, tiny hands. "Tell me, do I look like the vilest thing on earth? A woman who would betray her own husband?" "God forbid, Lady Blakeney," said the young man at last, "that I should attribute such evil motives to you, but—" "But what? Tell me. Quick, man. The very seconds are precious." "Will you tell me," he asked resolutely, and looking searchingly into her blue eyes, "whose hand helped to guide Monsieur Chauvelin to the knowledge which you say he possesses?" Did Armand make love to her already? Yeah, Armand, that common name in romances. He's actually her brother, so I don't think so. Hopefully not. But I don't think even Sir Percy, her husband, has. Because they, like, right when they got married, he was very, well, historically speaking, yeah, especially with the upper classes. They are known to be very incestuous, intentionally, because of supremacy and purity of bloodline bullshit. I don't think she even has with Sir Percy, though, because, like, right after they got married, he found out that she talked about the Marquis de Saint-Cyr, how he beat her brother, a nobleman beating up a working class person for being in love with his daughter. And then the Marquis was sent to his death on the guillotine, and Sir Percy was pissed. So he cared more about that than her brother or other people in the working class experiencing similar circumstances. Mine, she said quietly. I own it. I will not lie to you, for I wish you to trust me absolutely. But I had no idea, how could I have, of the identity of the Scarlet Pimpernel, and my brother's safety was to be my prize if I succeeded. In helping Chauvelin to track the Scarlet Pimpernel? She nodded. It is no use telling you how he forced my hand. Armand is more than a brother to me. Well, maybe that is true. And how could I guess? The dialogue is so repetitive. Baroness Orczy is not that, I feel like, creative of a writer. Again, class. It's an issue of class. But we waste time, Sir Andrew. Every second is precious. In the name of God, my husband is in peril. Your friend, your comrade. Help me to save him. Sir Andrew felt his position to be a very awkward one. Awkward. The oath he had taken before his leader and comrade was one of obedience and secrecy. And yet, the beautiful woman who was asking him to trust her was undoubtedly in earnest. His friend and leader was equally, undoubtedly, in imminent danger. And ... So we see again how, like, beauty is used as a form of currency, that it is, in this book especially, shown as a sign of purity or goodness, where she's like, do I look like someone that would betray my husband? And it's like, I don't know. What does that have to do with your intentions? Which is also justifying this very Eurocentric standard of beauty. Lady Blakeney, he said at last, God knows you have perplexed me, so that I do not know which way my duty lies. Tell me what you wish me to do. There are 19 of us ready to lay down our lives for the Scarlet Pimpernel, if he is in danger. There is no need for lives just now, my friend, she said dryly. My wits and 4 swift horses will serve the necessary purpose. Your wits? You mean the wits that you did not use in discovering his identity when it was, like, very obvious? Okay. But I know... Nope. But I must know where to find him. See, she added, while her eyes filled with tears, I have humbled myself before you. I have owned my fault to you. Shall I also confess my weakness? My husband and I have been estranged, because he did not trust me, and because I was too blind to understand. You must confess that the bandage which he put over my eyes was a very thick one. It is small wonder that I did not see through it. But last night, after I led him unwittingly into such deadly peril, it suddenly fell from my eyes. You will not help me, Sir Andrew? I would still strive to save my husband. I would still exert every faculty I possess for his sake. But I might be powerless, for I might arrive too late, and nothing would be left for you but lifelong remorse. And, for me, a broken heart. Yeah, there's so many ellipses in this. But Lady Blakeney, said the young man, touched by the gentle earnestness of this exquisitely beautiful woman. See? Do you know that what you propose doing is man's work? You cannot possibly journey to Calais alone. You would be running the greatest possible risks to yourself, and your chances of finding your husband now, were I to direct you ever so carefully, are infinitely remote. Oh, I hope there are risks, she murmured softly. Okay. It's a very privileged thing to say. I hope there are dangers, too. Okay, have at it, then. I have so much to atone for, but I fear you are mistaken. Chauvelin's eyes are fixed upon you all. He will scarce notice me. Quick, Sir Andrew, the coach is ready, and there is not a moment to be lost. I must get to him. I must, she repeated with almost savage energy. Again, the colonized mindset of using the word savage, especially. To warn him that that man is on his track. Can't you see? Can't you see that I must get to him? Even if it is too late to save him. At least to be by his side at the last. Faith, madam, you must command me. Gladly would I or any of my comrades lay down our lives for your husband. You will go yourself. Nay, friend, do you not see that I would go mad if I let you go without me? She stretched out her hand to him. You will trust me? I await your orders, he said simply. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure the rodents of unusual size don't really exist. Yeah, very reminiscent of that. Listen then, my coach is ready to take me to Dover. Do you follow me as swiftly as horses will take you? Meet me at nightfall at the Fisherman's Rest. Chauvelin would avoid it, as he is known there, and I think it would be safest. I will gladly accept your escort to Calais. As you say, I might miss Sir Percy were you to direct me ever so carefully. We'll charter a schooner at Dover and cross over during the night, disguised if you will agree to it. As my lackey, you will, I think, escape detection. Yeah, because we don't notice working class people. Also the fact that she's like, oh, we're going to, rent a schooner, and not talking about how Chauvelin, the money he had to use as part of the working class was probably collected from a group of people as part of mutual aid to even do this journey to begin with. I am entirely at your service, madam, rejoined the young man earnestly. I trust to God that you will sight the Daydream before we reach Calais, with Chauvelin at his heels. Every step the Scarlet Pimpernel takes on French soil is fraught with danger. God grant it, Sir Andrew. But now, farewell. We meet tonight at Dover. It will be a race between Chauvelin and me across the Channel tonight, and the prize, the life of the Scarlet Pimpernel. He kissed her hand, and then escorted her to her chair. A quarter of an hour later, she was back at the Crown Inn, where her coach and horses were ready and waiting for her. The next moment, they thundered along the London streets, and then straight on to the Dover road at maddening speed. Damn Frenchie, our eternal enemies. Only worse than the Spaniards. Yeah, in this very British perspective. She had no time for despair now. She was up and doing, and had no leisure to think. With Sir Andrew Ffoulke as her companion and ally, hope had once again revived in her heart. God would be merciful. He would not allow so appalling a crime to be committed as the death of a brave man. Well, what makes him so exceptional compared to other brave men who are fighting for more noble of things? Through the hand of a woman who loved him and worshipped him, and who would gladly have died for his sake. Yeah, she just only recently discovered that sentiment, where, once he, told her, why he'd been cold towards her, once she didn't have his love, then she, wanted it back, when before she didn't really care that much about him. And when she found out he was the Scarlet Pimpernel, then she's like, I am so passionately in love with him. Marguerite's thoughts flew back to him, the mysterious hero, whom she had always unconsciously loved, when his identity was still unknown to her. Laughingly, in the olden days, she used to call him the shadowy king of her heart, and now she had suddenly found this enigmatic personality whom she had worshipped, and the man who loved her so passionately were one and the same. What wonder that one or two happier visions began to force their way before her mind. She vaguely wondered what she would say to him when first they would stand face to face. He had She had had so many anxieties, so much excitement during the past few hours, that she allowed herself the luxury of nursing these few more hopeful, brighter thoughts. Gradually, the rumble of the coach wheels, with its incessant monotony, acted soothingly on her nerves. Her eyes, aching with fatigue, and many shed and unshed tears, closed involuntarily, and she fell into a troubled sleep. All right. That's the end of chapter 20. Next chapter is called Suspense. Oh. So you see how it's, so much drama. I was just about to it's very dramatic. Especially like the dialogue is very repetitive. It doesn't really get anywhere. There's so much focus on her beauty that it is a commodity, which was a thing at the time, but still is a thing in patriarchy. But that, especially in this particular reading, it very much is a tool of patriarchy, where it's like, oh, her like delicate hands and feet, where there are these very like strict ideas about gender and how like, oh, you like, this is man's work. It's like, okay, and like, who says? But yeah, never seen a skin so white. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like her snow white neck, long and thin. That's like, okay, so she's like ill. Like, what's going on? Yeah. So just reinforcing these very like colonized perceptions of beauty and gender and power and class. So this is why I call it aristocratic propaganda, because she was a working class person who married into the ruling class and immediately changed sides. And Baroness Orsi, the author, has an interest in getting people to be more sympathetic to the ruling class. We read this at the beginning for the introduction of the book, but the inspiration for this book was when her family's property was defaced by workers who worked on the land because they had multiple estates, being a baroness. Her dad refused to make any sort of concessions with the workers. They were very peaceful, and trying to be like diplomatic in the way that the ruling class says we should be, in saying that like, no, you shouldn't replace us with machines. Sounds familiar. And because this was like during especially the Industrial Revolution, where he was like, no, we need to modernize. And all of the people working there are like, we won't have work. Like, we need to feed our families. And then he wouldn't listen to them. So then they defaced the property. And she viewed that as being violent, and that she was so scared for her life when like they didn't hurt anyone. And she used that as a way to be like, the masses are so scary. They're so animalistic. Okay, bitch, why do you think they have to resort to certain tactics? Because you aren't willing to actually give people the human dignity they deserve. Perhaps if you distributed your wealth a bit, they wouldn't need to resort to these tactics. That would save you having to write this propaganda. I do love the music in the musical. It is a musical, so I'll admit that. The movie with Jane Seymour I found to be very charming growing up, especially because like Jane Seymour is extremely beautiful, which they casted her well, I guess. And I had a crush on her, but that just goes to show how I was falling into the propaganda, and then realized once I gained class consciousness how fucked up the story was. But yeah, this is why we're deconstructing it as we go along. OMG, the debauchery. I know. For shame. All right. Tomorrow we'll finish the videos that I had queued up. Mostly about some foreign policy stuff that I wanted to go over. Yeah. Just to continue with that, I did want to get to the local news of what has been happening in Utah, just because it happened yesterday, that meeting with everyone. So we'll do that. It's also banned book club. We're reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, so we'll do an introduction, give background to the book, and then start on the official reading for next week. So we have a little bit of time to acquire some books if you're interested in joining. And then we'll discuss why it is banned and what we think about the reading. All right. That's going to be it for me. But thank you for being here. It was lovely chatting with you all. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I will see you soon. Yeah, good to see you. I hope I can pick up a copy from my library. Yeah, if you need to get one there. Oh, thank you for even watching, being willing to listen to all my ramblings. Appreciate you all. Have a good rest of your day or evening. Okay, bye.